All right. Hello. How are you? Drive time, Monday afternoon, 3 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. Very March day today. It's a little cloudy and about 50 degrees. We have a heat wave coming starting about Wednesday and going through Saturday, where it looks like we're going to hit 80 degrees in March, which does not happen very often, but it's been a wild weather cycle all year long. Happy Monday. Thanks for making us a part of the start of your work week, and hope you had a fantastic weekend. A lot to do. The madness of March is here. Selection Sunday yesterday. BYU is a 6th seed. They're going to play on Friday in the West region. They're going to play the winner of NC State and Texas. We'll get to know these teams. NC State, once upon a time, was actually a really good basketball team, but they've stumbled down the stretch, as has Texas. Neither of these two teams guard. BYU should beat either. But it is the NCAA tournament. You never know. 34th appearance for Brigham Young with 0 Final Fours. That's the most in all of college basketball. Utah State headed to the tournament as a 9 seed out west in San Diego. They're going to take on Villanova. We'll let you know kind of the details about these teams, these opponents for both Utah State and BYU. I think both teams win. I think BYU beats either Texas or NC State, and I actually think Utah State's going to handle Villanova. I'll tell you why a little bit later on. We'll talk about the 1 seeds. We'll give you some advice to fill out the brackets. This is that time of year where a lot of you have not watched 1 minute of college basketball, but you get an email from your weird uncle or that guy at work that's always the guy that wants to start the pools, like, hey, fill out the bracket. Probably a degenerate gambler, but we'll try to help you out, and we'll get you ready for the start of the NCAA tournament. It's my favorite sporting event on the yearly calendar. I say it all the time. And we'll get rolling coming up on with the play-in games that aren't part of the tournament. The play-in games start tomorrow. They're not part of the tournament. And if you're a fan of the show, you understand that dynamic. UMBC Howard tomorrow at 4:40, and then it is Texas and NC State at 7 o'clock or 7:15 at True TV. This is the time of year we get to know True TV. Usually they have like Impractical Jokers like 24 hours a day, I think. I haven't turned on that station since last year's March Madness. The committee chair joined the folks at CBS, including an absolutely unhinged Bruce Pearl, by the way, who is on Auburn's payroll and embarrassingly tried to make a case for a 17-16 team because his kid coaches the team. That was an embarrassing moment for CBS, but the attorney committee hopped on the show and said Texas was the last team in. I think Texas would be the preferred opponent if you're BYU. I think that's the way you'd like to roll, but only time will tell. We'll have to see. So we'll get into the madness of March on the program today. The Utah Jazz and the Sacramento Kings, well, they were in the same arena last night. 18 combined players didn't play. 18 combined players didn't play in the Jazz-Kings game last night. 18 combined players that are getting paid money to play a child's game for a living were asked not to show up to work last night. But Anderson Garcia got his first start, right, kids? Jazz fans out there, hello, how you doing? We'll do some NBA. Expansion is on the way. We've talked about it on this program for a number of different years with a lot of our NBA guests. Seattle never deserved to lose their organization. Back in the day, the Seattle Seahawks, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, Dale Ellis, for you old NBA heads, looks like they're going to get a franchise back maybe 2028, 2029. And then Vegas. Now, there's a really interesting kind of undercurrent with the Vegas situation. Most anybody who follows the NBA or knows people in pro basketball know that LeBron James wants to own a team. And he's been pretty clear that he wants to own the team that's in Vegas. Now, obviously, that would mean LeBron would have to retire. Well, I mean, everything has changed. Once upon a time, you had to give up all your business dealings if you're the president, and maybe you can still play basketball if you're an owner. I have no idea how that works anymore because I have no idea how anything works anymore. Porter is going to update me on his homework assignment that I sent him over the weekend. As a result of, like, zero regulation in the market right now, Porter has prepared my grift so I can take advantage of the current climate, make a bunch of money, and then I'm gone. Porter's going to take over as the host. I'm out. So we'll get that update from Porter in a minute. RSL. I will tell you what. I'll tell you what, boys and girls. I was at the stadium on Saturday night for another positive result, 2-1 over Austin. They went down 1-0 early and then scored 2 goals. One was an own goal off a Caliscan cross. And Stein Spearings, and what a mullet on this kid, in his first MLS game, in his first game with RSL, promptly comes on to the pitch and scores a wonder strike from his role as the central defensive midfielder. RSL wins 2-1, and they're off to a great start. They're 3-1. They've won 3 straight matches. They only won 3 straight matches last year one time, and they've already done it. This season. They're going to take on a really, really good San Diego team, and that's a Sunday game at 5 o'clock on Apple Television. The Utah Royals are back. They lost over the weekend. They're also taking on San Diego on a Sunday tilt moving forward. The World Baseball Classic, this has been a hell of an event. The U.S. was able to beat the Dominicans 2-1, and now they're going to await the winner of Venezuela, who upset Japan, and that's your number 1 seed and favorite to win it. And they're taking on Italy, who continues to play well. Now that NFL free agency is all but over, there's still plenty of situations that could unfold, including A.J. Brown's future. The Justin Fields era in New York is over, as the Jets have traded Justin Fields to the Chiefs. We'll let you know where all the local kids landed as far as the landscape of NFL free agency. So a lot to do. Really busy show on this Monday afternoon. We'll start things off with Kurt Schmidt. We'll talk some RSL with Kurt, part of the roster construction there, of course. I forget. I think it's sporting director these days. They made a bunch of changes. Jason is the president of everything, and everybody reports to Jason, including Kurt. I believe he's still the technical director. Smitty, Richard Smith, live in studio. We'll do some college hoops with Smitty. We'll talk a little NBA. I mean, what do you want? Again, Jazz Kings last night. 18 different players sat. Did have some good NBA basketball on a Sunday afternoon. Little Knicks Warriors. So we'll get to some NBA storylines with Smitty on the program today. He's going to roll by, as he does, live in studio. The Jazz are back in action Wednesday against Minnesota. They're at Minnesota on Wednesday. So we'll bring Smitty in. Spencer Nelson, former Utah State Aggie. The Aggies, for the 3rd time in school history, won the Mountain West Conference Championship. They swept the regular season, and they won the tournament. Mason Falslev is your Conference Player of the Year. MJ Collins is your Tournament Most Outstanding Player. And Coach Calhoun, not thrilled with that 9 seed. I don't think Utah State's ever been able to get more than an 8 seed. And I get it. I mean, a one-bid league, by the way. Mountain West Conference gets 1 bid. Utah State wins both the regular season and the tournament. I think Coach Calhoun and most of us were expecting a 6 or a 7 seed. The good news is they're in San Diego, so a quick little jaunt for our friends up north. The bad news is if they beat Villanova, which I think they will, they run into a team who I think, spoiler alert, is going to win it this year. Okay. Now, I want to remind you, as I remind my dear aunt every year who emails me and says, I have to fill out a bracket. Will you do it for me? And then gets upset when it's horrible. None of us knows. Jay Billis does his every single year. He picks every single game, and he's never even close. This is the most unpredictable thing in the world. I am taking Arizona to win it. I will tell you why coming up in a little bit. So we'll bring in Spencer Nelson to talk some Aggie basketball, some college hoops, and then the voice of the Jazz, good friend of the show, Craig Bolerjack, on a Monday afternoon will join us at about 4:30. Kurt Schmidt, Richard Smith, Spencer Nelson, Craig Bolerjack, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Hello, how are you? Happy Monday. And that guy, Porter Larson. All right, did you spend the weekend coming up with my grift? Are you ready to present it on air?
As I do with homework assignments.
That's a no.
Not great with them. I did think a little bit on the intro here. The perfect grift might be the guy that claims he's going to live forever.
I've seen that dude.
There's a cultural tie. He's
LDS.
He's LDS.
He's weird AF, as the kids would say.
And listen, when he dies, it's over. He doesn't have to answer for his grift. It's done with. So if you incorporate some wellness, some sups,
okay,
some maybe philosophical lanes here, just do that, man. And then the day that you die, you no longer have to answer for the grift that you have had going.
Brilliant.
You
know what?
I know it's not entirely original, but he's not. I don't know. he comes off as very weird and odd
weird,
to me.
dude. He's a weird guy. For some reason, he's all over my Instagram. I'm getting tired. He has some powder where he's like one scoop. It's like live forever, drink.
See, it's in your algorithm already.
You know what? I'm starting a cult. That's what I'm doing. I think I could actually do that.
A cult?
Yeah, I think I could actually start a cult.
Well, let's go.
We could incorporate wellness.
You don't need my help with your grift.
There's so many people that utilize the current trend of wellness to capitalize on people that should know better to get money for certain schemes. Like this dude is selling what he calls live forever powder. It's one scoop, you drink it in the morning, he's like, you're going to live forever.
And guess what?
You're not.
And he won't either. Listen,
Correct.
I have never wanted to go to someone's funeral. Like, that's never like a thing that I want to do. I've been to many. Not fun, usually. I might go to that guy's funeral.
Just to see the reaction?
I bet you so much money that I'll live longer than him. Now, he's older than me. But I'm going to be here after he is. And I'm going to go. I'm going to go to that event.
I have an admission. One of my favorite things to watch are documentaries on like gurus or cults or like shamans, people that have fooled like a group of people, like I think it's Mother God. There's a Mother God documentary on Netflix. No, it's HBO. It's HBO, and it is wild. This like somewhat attractive young girl convinced everybody that she was God, and this group of like 20, 30 people followed her, and then she would have a partner that was Father God. And it was like the best looking young man in the group. And then as he aged, she would replace him with like the next young man. It was wild. And basically all she did was take these people to the cleaners so they would pay her so she could basically just smoke weed and drink all day and then go live on a stream. And, my friend dated a girl who claimed that she made soup and prayed on it and called it shaman soup. These are real things that happened.
This was the lady that was ingesting like silver content, right?
Yes. It's and I find it fascinating because these people are liars. They're just frauds. But bottom line, you actually did do your homework assignment. I'm starting a cult.
Yeah.
Text us if you'd like to join. It is $9.99 per day.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I mean, we might as well get weird because the point is to make money and not do radio anymore.
Yeah.
But should we do radio today?
We can. After all, it is the eve of the NCAA tournament.
It is indeed. It's the eve of several things. Okay, so we'll get to that later. But busy show. Sorry for the weird start. It's Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Kurt Schmidt. I'm not starting a cold. Everybody calm down. Kurt Schmidt will be our first guest right out of the gates. But before Kurt joins us on this Monday afternoon, courtesy of our friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 with Prize Picks.
NCAA tournaments here. You can shoot your shot on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It's available in Utah, so you're safe there. They've got a new feature. It is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Okay, it's here. It's like my favorite thing all year long. The March Madness tournament in college basketball has long been potentially my favorite event that we have on the bracket, or on the calendar, I should say. Now, it depends. I mean, there's years where there's an Olympic cycle or a World Cup, or maybe the Jazz are in the finals. Obviously, around here, Utah BYU football, college football national championship. I love this tournament. I grew up dreaming of playing in this tournament. I loved being a student at the University of Utah during the heyday of the Rick Majerus era, where they were making the tournament, making runs, going to Final Fours, and essentially a Red Bull away from beating Kentucky to win a national championship. I've never seen a team run out of gas the way they did at the end, because Rick basically played 6-7 players, 6-7. Shout out, kids. Didn't even mean to. Guess that's why it's a thing. So stop it. I didn't even mean to. Right? Like 6-7 players. That was his rotation.
But it registered in your brain. You've got kid brain.
I have a child.
Yeah, this is true.
Who keeps me in the mix about these weird things. So anyway, as I'm sitting there watching the Selection Sunday show, and side note, get Bruce Pearl off your dais, get Bruce Pearl off your panel. He's currently being paid by Auburn. Why do you think that man baby went off on a diatribe about Auburn deserving to get in? And they didn't deserve to get in, if we could just stop right there. Why is he on your panel? I mean, this dude is the definition of unhinged, because his kid is the coach, right? And he is still getting paid by Auburn, and he's on TV complaining that they're not in the tournament. I was watching that just stunned. I wondered if anybody else knew exactly what they were watching as he was complaining about the school that currently employs him and pays him, and his son is the coach, about essentially getting a bid when they didn't deserve it at all. So, look, we'll get into a bunch of different things. We'll talk about some of these matchups. But as I'm sitting there watching Selection Sunday, I just was missing the days where we were sitting there watching the Utes react to their bid. Let me just tell you this. Auburn was 7-11 in conference and 17-16 overall. I mean, they were fifth last in the SEC, and Bruce Pearl's up there trying to argue for them to be included. It was so embarrassing. But obviously we know the deal. Alex Jensen has a long-term rebuild project on his hands before the days of the Utah men's basketball team sitting there like BYU was, sitting there like Utah State was, waiting for their bid. And hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. As I've discussed, I don't know that it's realistic for anyone to expect that it'll happen as soon as next year, but we have plenty of examples of one-season turnarounds, right, in both basketball and football. That is the one thing that I think this landscape has allowed for that is pretty cool. The ability to go out in 1 year, you hire the right coach, that's step number one. Ask Indiana football, right? And then you utilize the resources at your disposal to go try to find some talent and then get this thing turning around. Plenty of teams did that this year. And it's going to be interesting to watch how this tourney unfolds to see, whether or not the teams that have been able to get kids to stick around, and namely Utah State, right? They lost some players when Danny Sprinkle left, but they've got some long-tenured Utah State Aggies in addition to some transfers. Will the teams like a Houston under Kelvin Sampson, who was able to retain a bunch of really good players from a team that nearly won it a year ago, in addition to a Kingston Fleming's freshman who's dynamic and some other additions, will they make the runs? Or will it be a team like BYU that's basically built with mercenaries like A.J. DeBonsa, who's gone after 1 year? So BYU gets in as the 6th seed, okay? So they're going to wait to see the winner of Texas-NC State before they find out who they play coming up on Friday in Portland. Now, Friday in Portland was probably always going to be their landing spot. It is the West region, and the Friday tilt is a necessity as Brigham Young, not the man, but the school, does not play basketball on Sundays. So when you look at what NC State and Texas are, it's interesting because they're somewhat similar. They're high-powered, high-octane offensive teams that don't guard very well, and I think that bodes well for BYU. Now, BYU does enter the tournament with a little bit of momentum as they were able to beat Texas Tech senior night in Provo. And then they got 2 wins in the tournament, which I said before the tournament, I thought that was their ceiling. But the way they went about getting the wins, they smoked Kansas State, who, of course, is awful, second worst in the league. Of course, Utah's the worst in the league this year. And then they shut West Virginia down and held them to under 50 points. Ever since Richie Saunders got hurt, the defensive issues for this team have been very, very obvious. So seeing that was a good sign. And even though they lost to Houston, I referenced earlier, I'm picking Arizona to win the tournament. I'll just be honest there. But if I wasn't picking Arizona, I might pick Houston. They're not a 1 seed. They're a 2 seed. I'll remind you, when you're picking your national champs, don't get too weird. Like, ultimately, I think 17 of the last 18 national champs are either named UConn or they were number 1 seeds. And the only exception is when Villanova won it as a 2 seed. So, every once in a while, a random team will rise up and win the thing. It doesn't happen much. Stick with the 1s and the 2s or the 6, 7s. See what I did? When you're picking your national championship. So the NC State stuff is really interesting. I'll tell you why. At one point, NC State was high speed ahead to being like a top 20 type team. Now, another interesting dynamic here is that NC State and Texas played in the Maui Invitational. Now, it was back in November. They're different teams, and there's some injury issues with both. Texas won that game in a shootout, 102-97. But I watched NC State take Kansas down to the wire. They lost 77-76. They've got a road win against Clemson, who's a top 20 team at the time. They have a good road win against SMU earlier in the season. They beat VCU, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's right. Early in the year. But they really stumbled down the stretch. They lost a couple of players to injuries. They went 2-7 in their last 9. And they were getting smoked to close the year. They lost to an atrocious Stanford team. Notre Dame's not good this year. They lost to Virginia in the final game of the season in the ACC tournament. So NC State at one point was a really, really good team, but they stumbled down the stretch and they actually barely got in. They've got 4 players who average 13 points or more. This is not a one-player dominated team. And then they've got 2 players that average 9 points. So essentially, 7 players average 9 points or more. They get up and down. They want to run. They want to shoot threes. And they want to score points. But they don't have great size, and they don't guard. I think BYU is going to be able to score on them relatively easily. Now, Texas, according to the NCAA tournament conference commissioner, they're coached by Sean Miller, who used to coach Arizona before, well, you can Google that. The chair said Texas was the last team in. The very last team to make the NCAA tournament was Texas. Now, again, these two teams are playing in the first 4 matchup coming up tomorrow night. Unlike NC State, Texas is a team that essentially is a one-man show on offense. The kid's name's Dalen Swain. He averages 18.7 boards, 4 assists. He's a very good player. He shoots about 35% from 3, about 82% from the line. He really makes them go, okay? They're not that good. And I don't think they've really been very good all year long. And, again, defensively is where both these teams really struggled. And just like NC State, Texas just imploded down the stretch. They went 1-5 in their last 6 games. And when you look at their schedule, their best win on the year was probably Georgia at home. They did beat Vandy early on. And they got Alabama, too. But this was a number of months ago. I believe 2 of their 7 preferred rotational pieces are injured right now, and they don't guard at all. So I think NC State probably wins this game. Again, they played earlier in the year. Texas won it. So I think we're going to see BYU NC State is going to be my best guess coming up on Friday in Portland. But like I said, in my opinion, BYU handles either team. Now, the Utah State conversation is very interesting. And Jared Calhoun, you can find that sound really anywhere online, was very upset that Utah State fell to the 9 line. And I don't blame him. I really don't. When you look at Utah State's body of work, essentially they won the Mountain West Conference regular season championship, and then they won the Mountain West Conference tournament. Okay, so they got the double sweep there. And the committee every year, if we're honest, does tell us that they don't think highly of the Mountain West Conference. They did it again this year. Utah State's the only team in. No San Diego State. No New Mexico, I guess, would have been the other logical option. Utah State, the only team in as the 9 seed, I feel like is a little bit disrespectful because they won the regular season and they won the tournament. Now, Villanova, when you dig into it a little bit, I actually think Utah State wins this basketball game. So the good news is, for Utah State, you are playing in San Diego, okay? The bad news is, if you beat Villanova, which I believe you are going to do, you run into Arizona. And look, I actually think, we'll get Ken Palm. We'll get his thoughts this week. To me, there are 2 teams I think that can win this thing. I think one is Duke, and I think the other is Arizona. I'll go over my criteria a little bit later. Now, Kevin Willard is the coach of Villanova. Kevin's a longtime college coach. He started his career as an assistant with the Celtics, Iona, Maryland, a few other stops. But Kevin Willard did just lead Villanova to the most wins for a first-year head coach, and that includes Jay Wright. So he just took over Villanova, and it's not a bad basketball team. They're the 8th seed, 24-8, third in the Big East, a solid, not great conference. And, of course, once upon a time, it was the best college basketball conference in America. I watched Villanova their first game of the season because they played BYU. BYU beat them 71-66, but it was a pretty solid game, good game back and forth. When you look at their best wins, you kind of have to go over some of their Big East stuff because they really didn't beat any of the good teams they played. And they lost in the Big East tournament to a bad Georgetown team. So you look at their L's at St. John's, who's number 15 with Rick Pitino. UConn, of course, Danny Hurley. UConn again. St. John's again. They lost to a solid Creighton team. They lost to BYU. Their best win on the season might be Wisconsin, which was in November. And again, going out in the tournament to Georgetown, who was one of the worst teams in the league this year. Villanova is a team that's gettable. And I think Utah State can beat them. I'm actually picking them to do that. Tyler Perkins is their leading scorer, 13 points, 5 boards. The Duke Brennan kid had some injury issues. We'll see if he's going to play. So I feel bad for Utah State that they were underseeded a little bit, but I am picking them to win coming up on Thursday at 2:10. And they're actually a slight favorite at last check in Vegas. So anyway, the Madness of March is here. Love this tournament. We'll go over some stuff a little bit later on. We'll talk about some 1 seeds and some regions, maybe give you some upsets to look out for, give you some guidance to fill out your bracket. But we'll catch a break. We'll get back to basketball. And we'll do a little NFL later on. Now that free agency essentially is behind us, we will tell you where all the local kids landed. But we'll start things off. RSL is hot. They've won 3 of their first 4. Kurt Schmidt, their technical director, is our first guest on a Monday afternoon. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, Smitty's going to join us live in studio today. We'll call that about 30 minutes from right now for an entire hour. Do some NBA basketball, talk some college hoops as well, and we'll get to maybe some things to help you fill out your bracket. But your boy was in America First Field on Saturday night, and my goodness, what a scene. RSL once again gets the win. A debutant gets another goal. Wonder strike in the 88th minute from Stein Spearings sends RSL to a 2-1 result over Austin. Kurt Schmidt, technical director, is our guest on a Monday. Hello, Kurt. How are you, sir?
Hey, Spence. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. What a start. Now, look, you've been around this league essentially your whole life, and, RSL year 22 or whatever. It is as much of a marathon and a slog as any other sport and any other league. You get off to a great start. Inevitably, you're going to run into issues. You get off to a horrible start. Hopefully, you're turning it around. But I'm going to ask you a macro question to start. What has stood out the most to you through 4 games as far as your ability to get wins and sit here at 3-1?
I think just the variability of it, right? And I think, each game has had some similarities, but also been very different. And I think how the game unfolded on Saturday night at home was very different than the last weekend in Atlanta. So, I think the hallmark of a good team is being able to get those results in different ways and find different paths to success.
So, since it's been a couple weeks since we've been able to chat with you, I'll ask you some questions that might be yesterday's news to some, but I haven't heard your opinion on certain topics. I want to start with some of these young kids. They've got juice, man. I mean, and I'll admit, I didn't even know who Aiden Herzakani was. And then I see the starting 11 announced for Vancouver. I'm like, oh, cool, we're playing the Royals. It's the Royals versus Vancouver. Awesome. And he's good. I mean, he's been really impressive. 4 games, 4 starts. Tell us about this young man and your thoughts on the way he's performed for you so far.
Yeah, I mean, look, Aiden's a guy that, has been coming through, and we've had our eye on him, and he's done a really, really good job anytime we've tested him in the first team environment. He had a very, very good season with the Monarchs last year, and that's a really important benchmark as players move through our system is performing at that level and showing that they're ready to take the jump. So, he's a fearless kid that, has good technical ability, can shoot, has also, he's a very inverted right winger. I think when he first came to us, he's done a great job of adding some versatility to his game too, being able to go right, go left, to play more, he's playing almost an uncomfortable position for him, being in that more interior role, or at least it was when sort of we first threw it at him, but he's adapted really, really well over the past couple of years at playing a little more centrally as well. So he's been a really good, really adaptable kid that's grown with every challenge that we've thrown at him.
So, Luka Moisa, let's move over to Luka Moisa, just another young player who I wasn't all that familiar with, and it's a area of depth on your roster, Kurt, as you know. And you're waiting for players to get healthy. You're waiting for visas. So he was kind of thrust into action. I was told that he looked young. When I turned on the television, I didn't know he was going to look 10. I mean, he looks like a boy playing up against men, but what a soccer brain. We saw some very bright moments from him, haven't we?
Yeah, I think Luka's talent, soccer IQ, technical ability, vision, passing, that's never been a doubt since he joined us. It seems like a long time ago now, but he joined us when he was a very young, 14 years old. And that part of his game has never really been in doubt. And it was just about the physical side and maturing. And, he's come along a long, long way in that respect also. And, I think he surprised everyone in this preseason in terms of, the distance he traveled, I guess, between the end of last season where he played mostly, entirely with the Monarchs, and then the beginning of this preseason with the first team was massive. And, he's impressed a lot in his ability to play in those games and to hold his own.
All right. We'll kind of stick with the theme of just overall thoughts, and then we'll get into a vacuum when it comes to the result that you guys were able to get on Saturday. But I want to move over to Gozo. And that may have just been me burying the lead, Kurt. Couple things here. Obviously, we are seeing his maturation as a player. And, Donnie pointed out with the Serginho Dest injury, maybe there's a potential of him getting a look with the U.S. men's national team. But I have a little bit of a layered question for you because I interviewed him a couple of years ago on the show. And I had to just end it after like 7 or 8 minutes. He's a nice kid. I just couldn't get anything out of him. He hopped on 2 weeks ago. We chatted for 20 minutes. And he was humble. He was bright. He was articulate. He is maturing as a person as well. My question is, as somebody who's watched this entire thing, as you watch his star rise, if he stays healthy, if he keeps working, what could this look like when it is fully developed?
It's honestly, it's really hard to say, right? And I think with him, like, the sky's the limit, and as long as he's willing to put the work in, he's going to get out of his career what he puts into it, and he's putting a lot into it. So, I'm really excited to see where it goes, just like everybody else is. But he's a kid that has continuously adapted and grown with each challenge, and he does what's asked of him and then a bit more. And he always does that. And so that's sort of been his secret to success is, he's not just meeting, but he's always, exceeding expectations and trying to figure out how he can push things a little bit farther and continue developing. And, he's done that. He's added things to his game. We've asked him to play a new position. He hasn't complained, denounced, and in fact, embraced it and done a great job with it. So, he's a kid that I think the sky's the limit for.
All right, moving off the youngsters for a minute. I mean, I know there are a few others, but in the sake of time, let's talk about some of the acquisitions and players that are new to the roster as well. I do want to give a little love to some of the vets. We'll get there in a moment. But Sergi Solins, who appears to be a true 9, and Jason hopped on last week, and I said, let's talk 3-5-2. And he scolded me because he's a mean person. He said it's a 3-4-2-1. So, okay, That's fine. You're playing with 1-9. And it's been Sergi so far. What have you liked?
He's got everything you want in a 9 in terms of, good size, good speed, understands the game really well, understands both sides of the game. Helps us in our pressing and in being the first line of defense and shaping the other team's attack so that we can defend it more efficiently. And also, is tireless in his work rate on both sides of the ball. As much as it's important to run defensively and track and defend and do all these things, it's equally important to be active and to continue to be an option and make runs when we're in possession. And he's a guy that certainly does that. And then obviously you saw in Atlanta, he's got that composure in front of goal to put the ball away when the chance presents itself. So, he's a kid that we don't yet know where he's going to end up, I think, in terms of his ceiling. But the early returns are really, really promising. And, that's why we picked him up in the draft when we did. And, I think the year in college sort of served him well, and we're really happy to have him.
Last week, Pablo said Morgan Guilavogui is the most talented player he has ever coached. And I don't know if that's a shot at Chicho or whatever. And it's interesting, like when I first heard about the signing, I probably should have dug in a little bit more. I just thought he was going to be your pure 9, and I know he can be that. But my goodness, like his skill set appears to be really, really unique. That through ball he played to Solins for the goal was a thing of beauty. And you can tell that he's got great vision. He has great touch. He's a very complete attacking player. I want to know the origin story. Like, when did you kind of see this kid, and what made you think that he could, be successful over this way?
Well, I'll start. Knowing Pablo, I doubt he was taking a shot at anyone. I think he's only thinking in the positive. There.
No, that's just me being irresponsible, Kurt, is all.
Just a little negative.
Yep.
No, but Morgan's a guy that came up on our radar actually a while ago. It was about 18 months ago, maybe now, or almost 2 years ago now. We started watching him as a guy that had done really, really well in the second division in France, and had been picked up by a big club in the first division and hadn't quite adapted there. And we sort of targeting that type of profile of someone who has shown what they can do, but because of various factors that we think can be overcome, isn't doing it at the moment. And that's usually a place where we can find some market inefficiencies and do something with player there. So we scouted him pretty extensively back then and spoke with him, and weren't able ultimately to get the deal done, and largely because factors out of our control. But he spent a season in the Bundesliga in Germany, did really well for a pretty rough team there. and then came back to France and had another shot. And through it's no shame, I think, given where Lance is right now, that he wasn't on the field more for them. And you can see the quality of player that he is, and that the qualities that he has and can add to our team. So he's a guy that, one of the things we liked about him back then, and obviously he's showing that now, is that he isn't just a 9. He's a 9. He's a 9.5. He can, play make, I think more than most people realize. I think he's a guy that's going to add a lot to our game. He also, he works really hard, like I said earlier, offensively and defensively, and sets the tone that way. So yeah, he's someone that's going to fit in and around, whoever we have on the field with him and make them better, which is ultimately what you need from your top players.
So Dunny hopped on, and the way he described it is you guys look calmer with Lucas Engel in the game, and obviously Dunny was a center back. What do you make of that statement? What do you make of the way he's played for you so far?
Yeah, I think Lucas is a pretty experienced guy and has a calm and a composure about him that we need, that any team needs on their back line, that we needed in our back line. And I think having some more experienced guys there alongside Jay Gladden in front of Rafa certainly helps us, and it helps the young players that we've had to bring along as well, and having some more experienced players on the field with them helps set those guys up for success. But his passing ability he's shown last year, obviously with Cincinnati, but also this year through preseason and the early part of the year for us, is something that can be very dangerous, and he can hit the diagonal and open things up. He can, pick his pass between the lines. So, he's someone that can help us in our distribution. And then, defensively, he's pretty no nonsense, willing to do the dirty work, willing to get stuck in, wins headers. He does all the things you want to do. So, if you don't think about him too much during the game, he's probably doing a great job.
Yeah, well said. While we're talking about the back line, from a fan standpoint, from a media standpoint, you always kind of become enamored with the new players because we kind of know about the other guys. But we need to give Jay Glad a little love, don't we? Like, I think he's been just just that vet, that calming presence. He's been around forever. He's climbing up the ranks of games played and minutes played. He's just been really steady and has looked really good in this new formation. Tell me what you've seen.
Yeah, we've actually, off the field between Pablo and and Jason as well, when he came on, talked through this type of formation or playing the system a few times over the past few years. And one of the reasons why it's come back to us is because we feel the role is really suitable to Justin in terms of his defensive attributes benefit the team a ton playing in that position, and it also helps him in possession where he's got some options to play to, and it makes the game a little simpler for him there. So anytime we can simplify the game for all of our players, it just makes them look better, makes them perform better. And I think this system, this setup allows Justin Glad to cover us on both sides. He can use his pace to deal with balls in behind on either side of the field, and then when he's in possession, he's got always 1, 2, 3 options that he can play to quickly, and then as he's getting more comfortable in this role too, and playing with the ball on the move, not stopping the game as much, and I think that's been really helpful.
Got to ask you about Sanabria. Back to the shiny new toys, because we're all excited about this. Just another player that the early returns, and look, it's early. I always use the term observation, not conclusion, early in the calendar for any team in any league. I understand that. But early returns for like every one you guys have brought in seem to be positive from my end. What have you liked most about Sanabria?
He's got everything, I guess, is what you would say. Like, yeah. He's all around. There's not an area of his game where I really feel like I wish he would improve on. Like, he's good first touch, technically very clean, makes great passing decisions, has a good range of passing, crosses the ball well in the box. 1v1 defending is good. Defensive positioning is good. Tenacity, aggression, physicality. Despite I know he looks a little smaller, but his physicality is really good. So he just brings everything at a high level, and I think that's something, obviously, that in and of itself in our team is very helpful. But having that on our team as an example and as someone that people can rely on, man, it makes it so much easier for everyone else. I mean, some of the combination play between him and Morgan down the left side in the first half the other day was really fantastic to see, and will only grow as the year goes on.
So we've been waiting to see Stein, right? We've been waiting to see this player that everybody has been talking about. Number one, marketing idea: sell a Stein Spearing's wig in the stadium. You're welcome. Okay, we can put that aside. That would be a big seller. But first ever RSL player to score off the bench in his debut, only the 6th ever, and he did it in 7 minutes, and he had touched the ball 3 or 4 times. And soccer has this thing where the moments feel just a little bit more dramatic, I think, than any other sport, quite frankly. Maybe it's because there's only, 3-4 goals scored a game. But, I mean, there were nerves in that stadium because you guys had been the better team. It's like, can you find it? He didn't even look up, beat the keeper, and it was a great strike. And that's not necessarily, what you see all the time from a central holding mid, but we saw it from him. What was that moment like for you?
I just like winning. So
there you go.
From that standpoint, that was the culmination there. That was fantastic. But I hope he didn't get himself in any trouble there, because he's not someone who's gonna score a goal every game. But it's certainly a fantastic way to introduce oneself to the fans, to the club, to the city, and obviously to his teammates. And when you step on the field in your first few minutes and you do that, it's really tough to not have, amazing confidence carried into the week's training in the next game. And, he's a very talented player. And yeah, I mean, obviously I think he'll say the same thing, which is, he's probably happier about the win than getting the goal. But yeah, I mean, so, it was massive.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, these moments, Pablo talks about it all the time, like life, sports, about moments. And that was a great, great moment, and great to see for him, because he's been trying to get back and ready to go. All right, so we saw Olatunji and we saw Diego for 19 minutes each. Let's hone in on the Diego portion a little bit, because, look, I don't know. I don't know anything about the national team selection, how it goes. So I'm not saying I'm an expert at all, but I do try to keep up on, where Diego is at in the process. And it seems to be of two minds, where Pochettino really likes him, and also he has to get healthy and start playing to ensure that he gets a spot there. How much of that is kind of intertwined into this process of wanting to make sure that he's ready to go, but getting him back in enough time to show that he's in form so he can play for the national team?
Yeah, I think you can't really focus, too far down the road and lose sight of the next step. And I think for Diego, that's really what it's about, is just, focusing on the next step in the recovery over the last few weeks, and then getting on the field, on Saturday for the first time this season was great. And now just building on that. And so, that stuff, Diego's done enough in that environment that, if he just gets back to doing what he's been doing for us week in, week out, then he'll get in there. That'll take care of itself. So the more focus there is on sort of that end point, the more likely you are to trip on a pebble right in front of you. So I think for him, it's just continuing to build on his performance on Saturday and put one foot in front of the other.
When you're going to bed at night, do you dream of a 90-minute situation with Diego Luna, Gozo, Olatunji, Sanabria, and Gialavigi? Do you dream about what that might look like when you have everybody available, even though you're already 3-1?
I don't dream about it.
Oh, that's too bad.
because I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about other things when I'm going to bed. But no, I think, I like to enjoy kind of what's happening right now, right? And obviously the guys that Pablo's putting on the field, that we're putting on the field right now, are doing the business, and that's what you ask of them. And I know that when we add some other pieces in, they'll do the business as well. And the confidence that generates and the competition that creates within and amongst the team. And, I think one of the most, satisfying things to hear after the game in the locker room was that even when we went a goal down, we felt like we were going to score 2 and win the game. And that sort of mentality in the group, and that exists, when you have this type of depth and competition, exists not just because of, one player or two players. It exists because everyone has so much confidence in the entire group. And so, that's something that honestly really pleases me early in the season here. And, I can't wait to see Victor and Diego and other guys that haven't contributed as much, get into the team and add to what's already going on.
Follow up, what do you think about when you're going to bed, Kurt?
Oh man, I right now, my son is he's big into this owl book that I keep reading him, so that's usually top of mind when I'm going to bed.
Okay, fair enough. Family man, love that about you. All right, let's move over to actually no. He deserves to have his name brought up. I know it's redundant because he's been steady, but Cabral, man, like best keeper we've had since Nicky by far. I've asked you about him a million times, but he deserves for us to talk about him today because he continues just to do what you ask him to do. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, I guess a good goalkeeper does all the stuff you expect him to do, and then he does a few things every game that he has no right doing. And I think that describes Rafa perfectly, where, when you need something special from him, he's got it in his pocket and he brings it out. So it's just, you can't really ask for more than that in a goalkeeper, even though, I think he does actually bring us more than that in terms of some of his composure and his leadership and his on-ball ability also. But, the main job is keeping the ball out of the net, and he's certainly doing a good job of that overall under pressure.
Wild stat here, RSL's not won 4 straight games since June of 2013. And it does not get any easier coming up. I just want you to help me understand how San Diego's been able to do this. I mean, they were an expansion side a year ago, and by any sort of prediction, they're going to have something to say about the Western Conference and maybe even all of MLS. What impresses you the most about them, and what are you guys in for coming up on Sunday?
I think just the way that they've sort of installed a style of play that's very distinctive and unique to them. And, I think that's one of the most difficult things to do, I think, as an expansion team is to have that ingrained, because you're starting from scratch. Your players don't know each other more or less. And, there isn't anything that you can build on from a previous year. So the fact that they were able to do that really quickly, I think, has helped them and also been impressive from the outside. And, obviously they've gotten some really top performances out of some key players, and, those guys have hit the ground running. Nobody hits on all their signings. They didn't hit on all their signings, but they hit at a high enough level on enough of them that obviously it's put them in this conversation. So they're a tough team. They're a good team. I think, last year we did well in our games against them. I thought we matched up well against them, and I'm looking forward to a good game on Sunday.
Kurt, you are the man. Appreciate the time. Congrats on the hot start. There, you can feel there's something about this group. Obviously, it's going to, have to be consistent, and I know it's a long haul, but I feel like you guys have done a good job. So congrats on the hot start, and stay safe, okay?
All right, appreciate it.
All right, Kurt Smith, technical director for Real Salt Lake. It's I don't know. I hate to put the horse in front of the cart or the cart in front of the horse. I do that all the time. I mix up my metaphors all the time. I hate to get too ahead of myself here, but I'm telling you, there's something that feels a little bit different about this team. They've got top-end talent. They've spent money on good attacking players, and this has been without Diego Luna and Victor Olatunji, where if you ask most people to start the year to name the 2 most dangerous attacking pieces, those are the 2 names that you probably land on. We saw them for 19 minutes each on Saturday night, and once this thing is kind of like fully going, it's going to be fun to see what they look like. All right, so our good friends at IFA Country Stores are back. Before you know it, it'll be baseball's opening day. There's nothing like taking a game in on a sunny afternoon. You can get your field ready this summer with IFA's 4+ lawn care program. It's a blend especially formulated for Utah soils. Get healthy, lush, dark green grass this summer by making your power move today at IFA Country Stores. We'll catch a break. Smitty live in studio coming up next on ESPN 700. We got Spencer Nelson joining the show in about an hour from now to talk some college basketball. Utah State is a 9 seed in the West region in San Diego to take on Villanova. Craig Bolerjack, TV voice of the Utah Jazz later on. The Jazz and the Kings, well, they were in the same arena. 18 players sat last night. The Kings out-tanked the Jazz and got the win. The Madness of March is here, and Richard Smith is sitting across from me in his USA baseball hat. Hello, Smitty.
Hey, so you say that the Kings out-tanked the Jazz.
Yeah.
But the Jazz lost the game.
right. Yeah, the Jazz out-tanked the Kings. That's
so
right.
that's, yeah.
18 players sat.
It was. I watched the game. I don't know why.
Good for you.
Was,
Jeez.
it was a little bit of a self-inflicted pain, and I'm wondering who half the guys were on the floor. Okay, whatever. I'm still having a hard time with the whole concept. We've beaten that dead horse more than a few times, Spence. But it's embarrassing. But we have a whole month ahead of us to watch more of it. So
can't wait
I
for
don't know
that.
what to say.
We saw the NBA starting debut of Anderson Garcia, who played 43 big minutes. It is so pathetic. Look, I love basketball. I watch basketball, and I'm Googling, like, who the hell is this dude? Bez Mang is now getting run.
Guy from Yale.
What's going on here?
Yeah, guy, one of your bros back in Connecticut played at Yale.
Hartford,
good player at Yale, and was a defensive player, in the Ivy League. But I mean, with all due respect to him and him, getting a chance at the NBA level. Okay, congratulations to him. Happy for him and his family that he gets that kind of a 15 minutes of fame or whatever. But with all due respect to the game of basketball as a whole, I mean, it's you got him and you got the Garcia kid and then you got the Hinson kid. It's just I don't know what to say.
When I heard Bowler say Daquan Plowden drive past Bez Mang, I'm like, I'm turning the channel. This is so dumb.
Well, you're the smart one then, because I wasn't the smart. I have to say, part of me was intrigued, like, who are these guys and what exactly are they doing out on the floor in NBA uniforms? And again, it's in the middle of March, and we have a whole month to look at this. I don't know what to say about it, but then I was able to flip the channel earlier and watch one of the great sporting spectacles in recent weeks and months, the World Baseball Classic and the U.S. and Dominican Republic. What a great game!
Hell of a game, yeah.
Oh man, the tension, and I was fortunate enough to go 3 years ago when it was in Miami and saw both the semifinals and the final 3 games back there, and it was terrific. The atmosphere was so good. A buddy of mine was texting me last night saying, "Hey, what's better, the World Series, which I've been fortunate enough to go to a few times, or a World Baseball Classic?" And I told him that there's not even a comparison, because in the World Baseball Classic, Spence, all of the teams that are get past the pool play and get into the knockout stage, which is 8 teams. All of those countries, the fans who represent them are so invested in it. I can only assume, because I haven't been to a World Cup soccer match in person, but I assume it's like that, because the fans come and they are going an hour before the game and chanting and rooting and hollering. And when I went the last time, the first game I went to was USA Cuba in Miami. Okay, so all of the Cuban expatriates came. All of them were there 2 hours before the game, and they're arguing with each other, which was fascinating to see because some of them were waving Cuban flags. Okay, they're from Cuba. Some of them are waving American flags, although they're from Cuba and have emigrated to the U.S., and they're arguing with each other about who they should be rooting for, because the guys rooting for Cuba are saying, "We're from Cuba, we root for Cuba," and the guys who live in Miami area, who came here from Cuba, are telling them, "Yeah, but we moved away from Cuba to live in the United States, so we root for the United States." And so it was this fascinating dichotomy of this culture clashing with each other about who they should be rooting for. in such an event like that. And then next game 3 years ago was Japan-Mexico, a terrific game. And then the championship game was Japan-U.S., which came down to the Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout thing at the bottom of the ninth. But I have to tell you, and I saw last night watching that game, it's in Miami, and yet the broadcasters were saying it was clearly a pro-Dominican crowd, and they were guesstimating that maybe it was, 2/3 Dominican to 1/3 U.S., in terms of how the fans were rooting and cheering and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of passion that the World Baseball Classic has really grown into the last three, probably the last three iterations of it, because they do it. It's always a funny schedule, but about every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do it every other year. It's not on an Olympic cycle or anything. It's kind of arbitrarily decided, but it's when those countries get involved. And now you're going to see tonight Venezuela, a very passionate country, and Italy, which is the upstart. And look, Spence, 21 of the guys on the Italian team are Americans who are just on the Italian team because they couldn't get either on the U.S. team or, their great-grandparent of Italian descent,
Mm-hmm.
so they qualified to be on the Italian team. Most of them have played Major League Baseball or in the minor leagues or up and down and whatever, and you'll recognize names. In the Venezuelan league, a team is packed with all-stars, starting with Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Braves, who's their leading leadoff hitter, and it goes right down to Jackson Chourio, who's the great young player for the Brewers, who bats ninth in the lineup. This is the kind of team they have, and yet Italy has been beating everybody like 8-2 and 7-1 and whatever, and their guys are just full of passion and desire, and it's just really what sports is supposed to be about when you're talking about competing and having the passion to do it on the field and play for your brothers. That's this is anybody who's just a casual baseball fan or even just a casual sports fan should try and tune in, whether it's tonight, Italy, Venezuela, or tomorrow night, U.S. against the winner of tonight's game, just to see the passion that's brought about in the fan bases. It's really fun to watch.
You make an interesting point about the World Baseball Classic being more intense than the World Series.
Yeah.
There's always something, because I'm thinking back to one of the coolest things I've watched over the past 4 or 5 years was the U.S. beating France for the gold medal in the Olympics. We just saw the U.S. beat Canada for a gold medal in hockey. You referenced the World Cup. I also have never been. It is a bucket list item. I'm going to try to at least get to one match since it's over here. There's something about the global battles when countries are involved. Because the U.S.-Canada hockey game, I mean, a lot of these, they're teammates.
Yeah.
They play in the NHL. I mean, France has a bunch of NBA players. And they're teammates. They play with some of these guys. But when it comes to going head-to-head, country to country, that ups the ante just a little bit.
Well, yeah. Well, and the other day, the little scuffle that really was nothing, but the media wanted to make something out of it was Randy Rosarena for Mexico comes up to bat, and he goes to dap up his Seattle Mariners teammate, Cal Raleigh, behind the plate, and Raleigh just ignored him. And he said afterwards, I wasn't paying attention who was coming up. I'm looking at my pitcher, and I'm thinking of the sequence of pitches we're about to throw here, and I really wasn't paying attention. And then they asked Rosarena afterwards. He said, "Yeah, I don't know what the deal was." I said, "Yo, dude, what's up?" And he didn't even look at me. And so that was a little minor scuffle made up by the media of two teammates who play together, the Seattle Mariners, on opposite sides in this classic, which is a whole. All those kinds of storylines are all over the place with teammates in Major League Baseball who are playing for different countries in this thing, and just the passion they play with is just it's just fun to watch. It's just and now in the knockout round you get it because it's it's like hockey. It's in the NCAA tournament it's a one and done thing. So every pitch, every error, every mistake is magnified, and the players react to accordingly with their emotions.
So if you're looking for it, it's 6 o'clock first pitch on FS1, Venezuela, Italy. Then the U.S. plays the winner of that tomorrow to win the entire thing. All right, Smitty, I'm going to reach into my Black Magic radio bag and come up with a Utah Jazz topic that doesn't have anything to do with the team right now.
Ooh, okay.
Because, I mean, what do you want? What do you like, there's nothing to talk about. We know the deal. They're playing a bunch of young kids.
Yeah.
They're holding all their players out. They're playing players that nobody's ever heard of. They're trying to lose the rest of the way. There's a month left that is exhausting. But they're doing this because they would like to hold on to this draft asset they're going to have in the draft coming up, which means as the NCAA tournament approaches, if you're a Jazz fan, you should watch some of the players on the biggest stage that the Jazz are looking at. So in your history of analyzing talent, scouting, evaluating, what can the NCAA tournament do? I know you've got data on these kids since they were 12. I understand. But this is the biggest stage most of these players have ever played on. And like Dante DiVincenzo wasn't on anyone's radar. He won Final Four Most Valuable Player, and he's a 10-year pro, if not more than that. We saw Fredette, in the Mountain West Conference tournament, put it on Kawhi and San Diego State with 50. We've seen Randolph Childress. We've seen great players make some generational runs in tournaments, and suddenly they're on the radar of NBA scouts. This time of year, evaluating talent, tournament specifically, what can it tell you?
Well, it's what's fun about it is that again, as we're talking about the World Baseball Classic and the NCAA tournament, all these games, we're starting tomorrow night with these playing games. Which, by the way, Spence, I still haven't heard any explanation why we have these Tuesday, Wednesday playing games. I still don't understand it. Was involved in it for years and years and years. When they started it, never understood. They tried to explain why they have them. I still don't understand why they have them, but. Okay, whatever. They're starting to play these the games tomorrow night. UMBC, Maryland, Baltimore County is playing Howard, and then Texas is playing NC State, and the winner of that game will play BYU in the so-called opening round. But this is the same thing in terms of any competition where you get a one and done thing. You're starting now, so you're starting every game. The winner gets to go on and play another game, and the loser packs up and goes home. So that's what makes it exciting in the NCAA tournament, because you know that everything is on the line for everybody's season. Everybody you're seeing walk on the floor now has been practicing all last summer as a group or individual. Some of them go on overseas trips as a team to work on their ability to play together and camaraderie and all that kind of stuff. And then they play this whole season, preseason in the fall, and then their conference play and everything. Now all of that comes down every time they step on the floor. Every team, every player knows that this could be my last game of the year if it doesn't go right. And so that heightens up the tension, the focus of the players. Every play is magnified, plus or minus. That's what makes the NCAA tournament, I think. There's a lot of teams people are going to watch. They never heard of them before. They don't know how good they are. They don't know how they just squeaked in. They don't know whether they can really compete with the other team they're playing with, whatever it is. But the draw on it is that it's all an all-or-done, one-and-done thing. The team either wins or they lose and go home. And so every game is like that, and that's what I think really brings the interest and the pressure on the games as it starts to unfold.
So NC State, we'll dig into a couple of these opponents and try to learn a little bit about who BYU can play. Interesting thing about both NC State and Texas is neither of them really guard. They're not great defensive basketball teams. Sean Miller, who coached Arizona, is coaching Texas now. Will Wade is a first-year coach for NC State. I watched NC State take Kansas down to the wire. They lost by 1. They do have some decent wins. They beat Clemson on the road, who was a top 20 win. They did beat Carolina. They actually smoked Carolina. I think that was right after the injury to Caleb Wilson. Lose to Virginia in the ACC tournament. Texas and NC State actually played earlier this year in the Maui Invitational, and Texas won that game, 102-97. So they both want to score. They both get up and down the floor, but neither of them really guard. Preferred opponent for BYU, both these teams stumbled horribly down the stretch.
Yeah, well, they're both. How about this understory, if that's such a phrase to use? the Texas, NC State playing each other, coached by two guys, Sean Miller, Texas, Will Wade for NC State, who were both major guys in the recruiting scandals in the 2010s, in the 15, 16, 17. Two guys who escaped out the back door, and nothing happened to them.
Nope.
Their assistants got whacked, and in the case of Sean Miller, one of his assistants ended up going to jail for a while for this, and the two head coaches just looked the other way, said, I don't know what you're talking about, and their institutions just let it slide. It was awful. If you watch the Dawkins documentary about it that HBO did several years ago about the whole thing, it's kind of unseen. Although nowadays it doesn't matter because everybody's doing it, and it's even promoted by the NCAA. But these guys at that time were doing shady things under the table, and now here they are. They resurfaced several years later, coaching two high-profile programs, and they're against each other. And one of them will move on to play BYU, and so it's to me that's a fascinating story in itself, how these guys have gotten to this point where they are. But okay.
You said it's a Dawkins documentary?
Yeah, I forget the guy's first name. I wanted to say Will. It's not Will. Will Dawkins, the general manager of the Washington, was the Dawkins kid who became the agent, who's the young kid from Michigan.
Well, I mean, is it still on the HBO platform?
Yeah, it's on HBO.
I'll go watch it. I haven't seen it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fascinating because he went to prison. But then when he got out, he authorized this documentary to go, this is what happened. This is the deal, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you step by step. And he goes through the whole thing about what they were doing with players and how they were trying to help players. And at that time, you weren't allowed to, quote, pay players. And one of the things in the documentary is the famous Will Wade. When the FBI was investigating, they were surveilling and taping phone calls and everything. They got Will Wade, the now coach of NC State, on the phone, recorded as saying, "Hey, we gave that player a strong A -- offer. We gave him a strong offer, to come here.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more you want." And this was, clearly against the NCAA rules at the time. And Will Wade, was kind of shrugging, like, that's not me. That's not me. On the, like stupid stuff. Like you're going, do you really think I'm that dumb? But anyway, but the FBA. But then what happened in that documentary? And I'm going off tangent here, Spence. But in the documentary, you'll find out that when they get to court and they get to Judgment Day, so to speak, in it, the guys who were heading up the FBI investigation for like 3-4 years are nowhere to be found. They don't show up in court. They don't testify. They just disappeared. The guys who worked for the FBI. That was because the government realized they didn't really have anything to stand on, and it was going to fall apart. And these guys just went out the side door, and you never heard from them. I mean, It's the wildest thing.
Interesting.
If you pay attention to it and you watch that documentary, you'll learn a lot about what was going on in the 2010s in NCAA recruiting. And now all that's washed away because, the guys transfer every other week and everybody's paying guys millions of dollars to go to their school, to transfer to their school and what have you. But these games tomorrow, I think they'll both be interesting games to watch. Maryland, Baltimore County, and Howard are both really good competitive teams. They'll have a good game against each other. Texas and NC State have athletes, and their coach. Those guys are good coaches. Aside from all the stuff off the court, they're very good competitive coaches, and they're going to be fun games to watch to start the NCAA tournament.
And we'll see what BYU is able to do. They do enter this this tournament on a not a run, but they kind of steadied the ship a little bit after Richie got hurt. They were able to beat Tech. They won 2 games in the Big 12 tournament. K-State's not good, but then they finally figured out something defensively. They held West Virginia to 48 points. And look, I'm not a moral victory guy, but I think Houston can win it. They're the 2 seed. They're a 2 seed. They're not a 1 seed. BYU played a good game against them. So the Richie injury hurts them. Dawson Baker, the Xavier Stan kid never played for him. They're not close to full strength. AJ leads the country in points per game. He just broke Kevin Durant's record for points in the Big 12 tournament. And if one guy can really get going, they'll take on Gonzaga in the second round if they get by, their first round matchup.
Yep.
Mark Few has a really big physical defensive team, like maybe the best defensive team he's ever had. I don't think they can beat them.
Yeah.
What do you think best case is for BYU in the tournament?
Well, I think, again, Dabansa has clicked it up a notch. I didn't know that if he could do that, but in the last 4 or 5 games, he's really picked it up with with Saunders being out, and has really put the team on his back, and has showed that he can play in all. I mean, we knew that anyway before, but he's really, I think cranked it up, and is really willing to take on that weight, and he's gonna want to show in the NCAA tournament that he's a real guy in that regard. It's going to be fascinating to see, as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, obviously, and as long as he doesn't get hurt somewhere along the line. I think he has a chance to carry them. These kind of games, Spence, are the ones that you look back over the history of the NCAA tournament, is a kind of stretch that guys can make even bigger names for themselves than he already has, if that's possible, by getting a lot of games under his belt and showing everybody that he can actually carry a team, when the lights are the brightest.
All right, before we catch a break, it's the March Madness Window Special from our friends at Advanced Window Products. Now, you've heard me talk about Advanced Window Products before. This is Nate Orchard's company. Nate, of course, the mayor of Sac Lake City, great player at Utah, longtime NFL guy, his buddy Jake Weber. They run it together. So, March Madness Window Special. Here's the deal. Coming up this week, we're actually hitting 80 degrees. If you notice that your home was cold during the winter, and if it gets too hot during the summer, it's probably because of your windows. And if you're jacking up the heater and then the AC, you're just wasting money. So take advantage of this special. You save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. But there's a different wrinkle now. Discounts can be prorated for fewer than 10 windows. So if you only need a few done, they're gonna discount that as well. 40 years in business. They're here for the community. Okay, so they want to do right by you. These are good people. I can stand up for them. Take advantage of this special. Most homes can have windows and doors installed in just one day. Sales and installation are handled in-house, so there's no middleman markups. You're saving money anyway. They build the windows, install the windows, and guarantee them for life. Get a hold of them at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. Take advantage of the March Madness Window Special from our good friends at Advanced Windows. More with Smitty live in studio. Coming up next on ESPN 700. One bracket, $1 million. The ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM $1 Million Bracket Challenge is live. Sign up today on ESPN700sports.com. It's brought to you in part by our friends at Big Willie's, Game Day Men's Health, Intermountain Bobcat, Budweiser, the Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Burger Fusion, and the Utah RV Super Show. Head on over to ESPN700sports.com. Fill out your bracket, a chance to win $1 million. You get to play against all of us, me, Porter, James, Gordy, Smitty.
I could put one in just like anybody else, but you know what I'll do, Spence?
What will you
I'm going
do?
to go down the thing, and I'm just going to flip a coin. Every team is going to have
Might
a
as
head
well.
or tail, and
Might
I'm
as
gonna
well.
flip it and we'll see what happens. In our family bracket last year, I just was reminded by Spence Nelson, my nephew, who runs it for our family of 50 or 60 people all around the country, that last year our family pool bracket was won by my 12-year-old grandniece in Oregon. Madison, she won it. So
My mother won our family bracket last year. She watches some BYU, or she's in the room when my dad is watching. The wildest one year, our office administrator thought Tony Bennett was a good-looking man.
There you go.
Picked him to win it.
There you go.
She won the entire
There
bracket.
we go.
Look, let's be very clear. Every year, this time of year, I get an email from my dear aunt, and it says, "Hey, I've got to fill out a bracket. Will you do it for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then I get an email in 2 weeks that she's mad at me that I'm so bad at it. None of us know the deal. Jay Billis, Richard Smith.
Of course.
None of us know.
Hey, otherwise we would be in that ESPN. What is the actual odds of someone getting it? It's
A perfect bracket?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's like 92.
It's something
quadrillion,
like
yeah.
you're more likely to get struck by lightning like 3 times in your life.
Yeah, I mean it's goofy. I mean,
Go fill it out.
Everybody have fun with it.
Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously,
Yeah.
and don't be upset when your bracket is all messed up by Thursday afternoon.
Indeed. All right. Indiana, Washington, Brooklyn, Sacramento, Utah, Dallas, Memphis, Chicago, and probably welcome to the party, Milwaukee, now that they're more or less out of it. New Orleans is trying to be good because they do not have their draft asset. It goes to Atlanta.
Right.
So that's 9 teams, Smitty, as of right now, that will be unserious about competing the rest of the way. I know we've talked about it, but I mean, if you want to talk about Anderson Garcia's upside, we can. 9 teams in pro basketball trying to lose every night.
Well, and for fans of the NBA and fans of the Jazz who want to look at something, here at the last month of the season, even though it's kind of disrespectful in my opinion to the whole league and the game of basketball, what these teams are doing, but they're jockeying for the to get better odds of getting a draft pick. But just you can look it up online. You can see what the percentage is of the odds of if you finish with the 4th worst record or the 5th worst record, and what the odds are of either moving up or at least staying within that area. Like for the Jazz, for example, they need to stay in the bottom 8. And again, for our listeners, just to make sure they understand, it isn't based on how you finish the end of the regular season. It is where you are after the draft lottery takes place in May. So one potential scenario is a team like the Jazz, for example, they could finish, say, with the 7th worst record in the regular season, and then when the draft lottery hits, if it happens like it did last year, where 2 of the better teams in the lottery, San Antonio and Dallas, jumped from 10 and 12 on the 8 and 10, right?
I think it was 8 and 10,
something like that. They jumped from 8 and 10 record wise up to 1 and 2, and that slid everybody else back 2 slots. If that happened this year, as an example, and the Jazz say we're sitting 7, then the Jazz would be in peril of sliding back after the lottery from 7 to 9. If that were to happen, then that would mean the Jazz would lose that first-round draft pick to OKC because it's only top 8 protected. So even no matter how it plays out in the regular season, the Jazz are still going to be holding their breath until the lottery day in May. because that's when they find out where they actually finish in the grand scheme of things.
So here are the odds, okay? So we'll just kind of go over this a little bit. The Jazz, as we are sitting here today, are at 5, okay? So if you finish with the 5th worst record in pro basketball, your chances of it being out of the top 8 are only 0.6%. There's still a chance that you can fall to 9, where they're at right now, okay? So where I think they're going to try to get, so the worst team in basketball, you cannot fall past 5. Number 2, you cannot fall past 6. Number 3, you cannot fall past 7. Number 4, you cannot fall past 8. And then the odds of you falling past 8, again, are incremental. At 5, where they're at right now, it's 0.6%. At 6, it's 3.7%. At 7, it's 12.9%. And if you're 8, it's 32.1%. So where they're at right now, 0.6% chance of it falling to 9, and then they'd lose the pick. But the most likely spot they would draft, 19.6% chance to draft 6, and 16.7% chance, no, 26.7% chance to draft 7th. They're most likely to draft 6th or 7th based off the lottery odds.
Yeah.
That's where they're at.
Yeah. And again, Spence, as we learned last year, you put all your eggs in that basket, and you're always focused on the best case scenario. And as we learned, the best case scenario doesn't always happen. And sometimes the worst case scenario happens, as it did last year with the Jazz, had the worst record in the league, and ended up potentially from going from 1 to the worst that they could, which was 5 last year. Ended up with Ace Bailey, who I think is going to be a nice player for them, and he's young, and so he's looks like he's getting better to me, and is going to be a nice player for them going forward. But they want to try and get in that so-called top 3, right, where that everybody's talking about. But looking at the draft myself so far, there are a lot of guys I think are going to be good NBA players who are going to be at 5, 6, 7, 8, even to 9 and 10. I think there's a lot of players. Now, the interesting thing is that several of them are point guards. And so if you get in that area, then, as we just project forward and, for the sake of argument and discussion and debate, it's going to be interesting. Do you like Keontae George, how he plays for the Jazz? Do you like Isaiah Collier and the strides he's made this year in his second year as point guards? If you get in one of those spots at 5, 6, 7, if that's where they are you going to look at those players who all, to me, a bunch of guys who are all point guards who are very good prospects? Are you going to be looking at maybe taking another guard in that spot that then might muddy the waters even more of what you're already working on with the guys you have on your roster? That's going to be the fascinating part when you get to June and you actually know where you're at and who the guys are that you're looking at.
All right, let's exist in reality for a moment, because there were a lot of people last year, to your point, after the Jazz fell, that screamed, the NBA hates Utah. Here we are again, little old Salt Lake City conspiracy theory. Just shut up. It's boring at this point, okay? It's a lottery, and some teams like San Antonio have had tremendous lottery luck, and it's helped them to build some dynasties, quite frankly, and some great teams they had once upon a time and a great team they have now. The Jazz are most likely, as of today, to draft either 6 or 7. Did you hear that, Porter? They're both most likely to draft 6 or 7. It's the third 6-7 reference on the show.
Not entertaining this.
All right. So, Smitty, you referenced that you see a lot of players that you do like in this class. So we've talked about the top, but if the Jazz aren't able to get up there, if they just land where they're most likely to land, Darren Peterson, A.J. DeBonsa, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, and probably Kingston Flemings are what most people believe to be the top 5 prospects in this draft. But who are some other players that you've seen if we hone in on 6, 7? If we hone in on 6 or 7, which is
that what we're doing now?
Well, that's where the Jazz are most likely to draft. I mean, we all hope they get some luck and get a great piece. But how deep? I guess what I'll ask you is, how deep do you think this class is? If they're at 6 or 7, how likely are they to grab a player that's going to be really good for a long time?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of good players that are going to be there. What's going to happen is that, again, it's all going to depend on, how somebody, what the needs are for certain teams, what teams are going to be, are they going to be drafting just, the best player? Are they going to be drafting guys who fit the mold of what they need? Are they going to be looking at guys who they think could be game changers for them? Are they going to be looking at guys who might be able to add to what the group is that they're doing? Everybody's going to be looking at it differently. So one team may be looking at a small forward, even though that he may not be particularly the best player available at the time by most people's standards. But what they're going to do is they're going to be looking at a guy who fits in for something that they need. For example, one guy might be a big guy, a big small forward like Nate Ament, the kid from Tennessee, who's a 6'11" kid. He's really a defensive, versatile player. You might have somebody like that who gets in the mix for a team that might be looking for someone who's long, athletic, active, can get out and defend some guys. You might be looking at a guy, then you get into point guard area, a guy like Mikel Brown, the kid from Louisville, who's really grew quickly from high school to college, has really become a good player at Louisville. You might get a kid like that. You might get someone, the kid who got hurt for that you mentioned from North Carolina, Caleb Wilson, a very good player. The kid who came out of nowhere playing for Illinois. He's come out of nowhere. I really like him. He's shown that he can be a very good player. I'm also very intrigued with Darius Acuff, the kid from Arkansas. I think he's got something special in how he plays the game. So these kind of guys are the guys you're going to be, looking at, who are going to be in the mix here when you get into that, 6, 7, 8, 9 spots. It's going to depend on what you really value, what you think is going to add to your group. Because if you can find someone, like the Jazz, you have to project what the Jazz, if they can sign. The weird thing about for the Jazz is going to be they're going to have the draft, then they're going to have free agency. So it's going to be after the draft that they find out and figure out, are they going to be able to keep Walker Kessler, or is he going to come with a number from some other team as a restricted free agent that's really going to blow their socks off, and they're going to have to make a big financial decision on whether to keep him or not. But just say in a perfect Jazz world, they are able to retain him and bring him back next year under a new deal, then you're going to have a potential front line of Walker Kessler, Jaren Jackson, and Lauri Markkanen as your starters up front. That's not only a big front line, but that's a very talented group. And so you love to have that group. Now in the backcourt, who do you have? Is that where you have Ace Bailey? Is that where you have Keontae George? Isaiah Collier kid is coming along. So now do you put someone in the mix with those guys in the backcourt? So do you want a more a playmaking type of guard to go with them, or do you want another long guy like the Sarr kid from Duke or somebody like that, who's 6'8", versatile defender who can play off of, similarly to what Ace Bailey does? All these things. These are all the moving pieces on the chessboard that the Jazz are going to be looking at, and some of it is going to be determined whether they're picking 3, 4, 7, 8. Because then you're talking about trying to put another piece to that puzzle that you hope comes together, especially if you can bring back Kessler.
Doesn't it feel like, because you always hear the whole debate again, between like best player available or player that fits your roster?
Yeah,
they're not good enough to not take the best player available, right?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, but again, sometimes you do that depending on who the guys are. The guys you have in your room who are the evaluators, is somebody pounding the table and saying, I don't care what you guys say, this kid really has a chance to be a special player. Nobody else sees it, whatever. And then it depends on how loud a voice that person is. in the room, if they can get people to look at the way they're seeing things. It's just, for example, in this draft coming up, I would say that you're looking at just, from 30,000 feet, if they got into that top 3 and they ended up looking at someone like Cam Boozer, who I really like, is really an intelligent player, is really a versatile player, but he's seen, as a very similar to his dad, as a 6'9" power forward, and who can rebound, to defend some, isn't the quickest of feet, but has a great feel for the overall game. But does he fit in with that front line? You think you may be having come back for an extended period of time. Does that make sense? Or do you go out and look at somebody who's a more athletic, long defender who gives you more versatility, on the wings? Like the Ahmed kid from Tennessee, as I mentioned, the Sarr kid from Duke, some of these longer athletic guys that you may have to augment your front line with, then you're going to be looking at, maybe somebody says, I think that guy's going to fit in better with the overall group than just the guy who's got the most talent. Then you have in the room somebody who says, no, we take the most talent. And if we have a log jam somewhere, then tomorrow we figure out what to do with it, whether it's how to play or whether it's to trade a guy to go get another guy. All those kinds of things come into play during the summertime once you've kind of got your initial group together and have made those kind of decisions.
Is it, I would imagine, because I was going to ask you, like, your personal philosophy. I always feel like I lean into just give me the talent and then figure it out. But it's got to just be predicated on the group you're analyzing.
Yeah,
obviously.
no, and that was always Jerry Sloan, who's the best at acquiescing to other people and letting people do their jobs. And but he would always say, our job at the end of the day is to bring more value to the organization. That's our job as basketball people. And then if we have a log jam somewhere of talent, we have too many point guards or we have too many small forwards, whatever it is, then you figure it out, some other way in terms of how you play, how you move them around, or trading one of those guys to somebody else who needs a guy like that, and you get something else back that can help your team. There's always something else you can do to maneuver, and what we've seen, with Danny Ainge, running the Jazz in the basketball operations, and now Austin Ainge, in that office as well. Those guys aren't afraid to move a lot of pieces around and to make those kind of calls, when they need to. So that's going to be the fascinating thing once we get to past the lottery date in May, and then we see what they're actually going to be looking at.
I wanted to have a little fun here and go back in time for a minute because, Larry Miller was very hands-on in a way that Gail Miller wasn't after Larry passed. Every time I've heard, I'm careful to listen when Ryan Smith talks about personnel decisions with the Jazz. And he'll say, so he said this about Austin. Austin has final recommendation to me. So he's never basically said, like, no, Danny's running the show or Austin's running the show or Zanuck's running the show. He's always said they have final recommendation to me, which, indicates he's going to make the call. Maybe he just says yes to whatever Austin says. Maybe he sees something on Twitter that changes his mind. I have no idea. I don't know how Larry handled personnel decisions. I've heard some stories. My father was involved in the front office, Frank, so you hear a lot of Larry stories. I was a kid. I don't remember. And my understanding is Gail just kind of trusted her people to do the work, whether it's basketball or marketing or game ops or whatever. When you were in the rooms and it's Scott Layden here and it's Kevin O'Connor there and it's Dennis Lindsay there and then it's Larry Miller here and it's Gail Miller later or Greg or whoever, what was that like when you were trying to make decisions?
Well, it was always we were very fortunate all during the Miller ownership of over 3 decades. They were always very good at letting the basketball people do the basketball stuff.
Larry was too?
Yeah. Well, Larry, I'll give you an example. The second year that Larry owned the team, he wanted to be involved. He was, not trying to say he knew, more than anybody else, but he wanted to have an active voice in that regard. And that year in the draft was the kid who was the National Player of the Year from St. John's, Walter Berry. And most teams didn't rate Walter Berry very high, primarily because he was an undersized center, but he was also highly dominant with his left hand. He couldn't do anything with his right hand. And so Larry really verbalized in one meeting that I recall that he really thought we should be looking strongly at Walter Berry if he comes up. And the group, especially Scott Layden, was trying to say, well, I'm not sure he's that kind of an NBA prospect or whatever. And Larry couldn't quite believe it. And he said, what do you mean? He's the National Player of the Year and he's this and that. And we're, well, yeah, but that's a different play, different level. They play different teams. I mean, try to go through that explanation. Anyway, we ended up obviously not taking Walter Berry and passed on him. And then Walter Berry had a very fleeting NBA career and played mostly over in Europe. And I think Larry early on from that exercise, my own opinion is that he kind of understood it, from that process that, I guess I have to dial it back a little bit because these guys study it more than I do and they're serious about it and they spend the time at it and that's what they do. And I kind of have to dial back. So as the years went on, Larry had a quieter voice in the room. He would sign off on whatever the basketball people suggested to do, with a few exceptions along the way where he felt like, he just needed to exercise his ownership responsibilities. One I remember was with Derek Fisher, letting Derek Fisher go when he was under contract to go to the Lakers when he had the issue with his daughter's health and he wanted to be closer to L.A. and Larry made an ownership decision. Hey, we're just going to let him out of his contract because this is a person issue. This is a human issue, and it's more than basketball. And Larry said that's the decision I'm going to make, whether it makes basketball sense or not. I need to do this for Derek and his family, and that's what he did. And and rightfully so for him and for Derek. And Derek went on and reignited back with the Lakers and was in L.A. and with his daughter and attending to his daughter's health issues and that kind of thing. But with those kind of things, there were a few things here and there, but most of the time, the Miller family, sat in the room, listened to what the basketball people had to say, would have a couple questions about, what about this or what about that, and the basketball people would, all of us would answer whatever if it was in somebody's certain purview, and if somebody had more information than someone else, they would chime in and then they would say, okay, well, if that's what you think. I mean, Gail was great about the Deron Williams trade. I remember, Kevin O'Connor having to go to her and say, hey, we really need to do this and explain it to her. And she said, well, if that's what you think we need to do, if that's in the best interest of the organization long term, then go ahead and do it. And so there were a few things like that along the way, but 98% of the time it was, they let the basketball people handle the basketball stuff. And in my opinion, and I'm biased because I was involved in so many of those meetings and discussions along the way. That's why our teams were able to be competitive for a sustained period of time and to always be in the mix, with just a few bumps along the road where you had to naturally turn a team over after Stockton and Malone or after Boozer, Williams, in that group. But we're able to turn around quickly because the basketball people were allowed to do what they were responsible to do and make the decisions they felt were best. And that's why I feel the Jazz were always in a competitive nature and were viewed by by others around the league because of what the owners allowed our group to do over those years.
And for our younger Jazz listeners, fun fact, in 1986, the Utah Jazz drafted one Wardell Stephen Curry Sr., better known as Del Curry, whose son is Wardell Stephen Curry II, better known as Stephen Curry.
Yep. And Del Curry was a very good player. We lost him, the following year after his rookie year. There was an expansion draft, and we lost him in the expansion draft because you could only protect 8 players at that time on your roster, and then the expansion teams could go after them, and that's how he ended up in Charlotte and had a very good career for the Charlotte Hornets and is still affiliated with their organization today. But Del Curry was a really good shooter out of Virginia Tech and really had a very good NBA career. And he was a guy we really thought highly of at the time we got him in, and then had to see him go because of the expansion draft rules.
Smitty, good stuff. Enjoy Italy, Venezuela tonight. I'm going to check out that documentary. It sounds interesting.
No, that documentary, the Scheme is what's called on HBO. Anybody who's interested in what the NCAA used to do, and I think you'll find it fascinating.
Great to see you, my friend. Be well,
man.
okay?
Thank you.
The great Richard Smith. All right, before we catch a break, we have a new client on the show, and I am excited to report, as a result of the deal we have with them, I am currently experiencing their treatments. And I can tell you, the stuff that they're asking you to do works, and it works very well. Let me say this. If there are children in the car and you don't want to talk, you don't want them to hear about the following topic, maybe turn the radio down. It's men's sexual wellness. The place is called Wasatch Medical Spa. It's brand new technology to the market. It's called Apex RF. Okay, it's non-surgical. It's a drug-free treatment. No pills, no injections, no downtime. It's really quick, okay? So the first step is a free consultation. As a result of them being on the show, you get $300 off of your first treatment. You're saving hundreds of dollars. So on the scale of full erectile dysfunction to just wanting better functionality, this technology does it all, okay? And again, they're kind enough to let me go through it, and I can just report without giving you enough details that things are going very well. We'll leave it there, okay? So very nice people, Wasatch Medical Spa. It's an easy 30-minute visit, free consultation, no obligation. Book online at wasatchmedicalspa.com. That's wasatchmedicalspa.com. Make sure you tell them that you heard me talking about it. Boom, $300 savings for your first treatment at wasatchmedicalspa.com. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Spencer Nelson joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. The Utah State Aggies won the Mountain West Conference regular season championship, and they won the Mountain West Conference tournament, beating San Diego State in the final 73-62. It felt fitting that that was the matchup, as this is the end of the Mountain West Conference experience. 5 times San Diego State and Utah State met in the championship game. Utah State ends up taking a 3-2 advantage. Our next guest, Aggie legend, friend of the show, Spencer Nelson. Happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Spence Checketts. Happy Monday to you. You have a good weekend?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. Played a little golf, got out and swung the clubs a little bit, went to a little RSL action, and watched a lot of college basketball. I can't complain. How was your weekend, bud? I would imagine it was good.
Great weekend. Great weekend. March Madness. Aggies won the Mountain West. Got to do the selection show. Yeah, it was really, really good. Really good.
That a guy. I want you to know something right out of the gates. We just had Richard Smith in studio for an hour.
Smitty. Love Smitty.
He's the best. And when he heard that I teased you were coming on next, as we were walking out the door, he said, you know, when Spencer was done playing, I did everything I could to try to convince our guys to hire him to be part of our front office because he's a great stand-up guy with great positive energy. Thought you would want to know that.
Smitty is the best. We usually golf once a summer, twice a summer, but he's awesome. You couldn't say enough good things about Smitty. So that was really kind of him. And he used to organize a dinner with Coach Layden. It was so fun. We'd go golfing and then we'd go to lunch or dinner with Coach Layden and just listen to stories. And man, it was so fun. It was awesome. Smitty's the best.
Nobody told the story quite like Frank, yeah?
Yeah, he was awesome. And I don't want to jump around, but of all the teams in the NCAA tournament, the teams that surprised me that didn't make the team was the Spiders. Were you surprised that the Spiders didn't make the NCAA tournament?
I have a feeling I know where this is going. Yeah, I agree. I was a little surprised.
Shocked that the Spiders, because they got a bunch of 8-footers.
Oh, no. Oh, I guarantee he is laughing, smacking his leg right now. I promise you he loved that one. Porter, our resident young, is rolling his eyes at us old dads, Spencer, just so you know. That was good. That was quality. That was quality.
You know what, though? I'll tell you what. The trillions of listeners that you have are so happy right now because of that joke. And they got to smile. That's all we want. That's all you want, Spence, is to put a smile on someone's face.
That's true. You saw the ratings. We do have trillions of listeners now. I appreciate that, Spencer.
I love it.
What kind of golfer are you? I don't take this the wrong way. Whenever I have golfed with anyone who is as tall as you, it doesn't seem to go very well. What kind of player are you?
So, Sam Merrill makes fun of my golf swing. It's not Charles Barkley, right? It's not. But there's a lot of upper body. There's not a lot of lower body, and Sam makes fun of me a lot. However, I'm not a horrible golfer. I think my handicap right now is, I think I'm an 8. So I'm not horrible, but I'm not great.
No, that's good.
I'll break an 80 once in a while, but 80 to 85 a lot of times. And then I'll shoot in the 70s occasionally. So not great. I'm probably going too long on this. The Utah State Am was at the Logan Country Club, and when I found out about it like 2 years before that they were going to host it, I was like, I'm going to qualify for it. And it dead set in my mind that I was going to qualify for it because the club itself gets like 2 qualifiers. And so, and the golf pro up there was like, you're an idiot. You're not good enough. You're not going to make it. And I made it to the final 3.
Oh, my gosh.
It blew him away, and I was really, really fortunate. I played out of my mind, and conditions were tough and everything, but I made it to the final 3 on the last day, and he was like, this is insane. You might actually do it. But then I got beat out by the top 2. So anyway, I'm not horrible, but I'm not great. I'm not a good golfer by any means. But what are you, Wise? Because you're a great athlete. Usually really good athletes transfer over to golf pretty well.
Hold on just a second. Okay, look, I appreciate the humility. Okay, you're a very nice, humble man. And look, no one thinks they're a great golfer. Only psychopaths think they're a great golfer. Tiger Woods doesn't even think he's a great golfer. But if you're single digit and you're almost qualifying for the State Am, you're a very, very good golfer. We need to be very clear about that.
I was lucky. I was super lucky over that 2 days to do it. But yeah, single digits. So I'm okay. But I mean, there's such a great story. I'm playing at Pebble with some guys. One of them's a doctor, right? And he's probably an 8 or a 9. And playing with these caddies, and they were the number 1 and the number 3 seniority caddies who were in our groups. And the guy, it was hilarious with us, who's a doctor, after about 14, 15 holes, he says to the caddy, he's like, hey, you've seen my swing. You know, what do I got to do to go from like an 8 to a 5? How do I get to a 5? And the caddy, straight-faced, looks at him and is like, what do you do for a living? He's like, I'm a doctor. He's like, oh, good. Do you got a family, kids? And he's like, yeah, I got 3 kids. And caddy looks at him and is like, you want to get to a 5? He's like, yeah, I really want to get to a 5. He said, you're going to have to quit your job and leave your family.
No.
You want to do it? So there's such a separation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Honestly, there's separation from like an 8 and like a 3 or a 4, and then to be a scratch, there's another huge jump. So, yeah, I have a 90 in me occasionally, right? Like I can just blow up and shoot a 90, but I can shoot a 76 as well.
You and I are pretty similar then, because it's interesting. Because I never played when I was younger. I thought it was boring. My grandpa always wanted me to play. He was a Oak Ridge guy, and over the course of the final 40 years of his life, he played 5-6 times a week. It was like his whole life. And he always said, you can be good at this. And I said, yeah, but it's boring. I want to go shoot a ball or throw a ball or chase it. I don't want to just stand here and hit one. So then, like everybody else during COVID, I got into it. And I bought new clubs, started taking lessons. And it took me, let's see, this is like my 6th year playing. It took me 5 years of working really hard at it to go from like a 12 to my index now is a 7.4 is where I'm at.
Wow. Yeah, you're good.
Well,
you're good.
You explain it perfectly. I can get you 76, 77, but I can also get you 92, 93. It depends on the day.
Yep. That's totally true. And part of it is just course management, right? When I golf with really good golfers and I pull like a triple and we ended up in the same tee shot, right? But then they master a single and they get a 5 on the hole and I get a 7, right? And that's where I think that's a huge separator for the guys that just don't shoot a 90 ever or even high 80s, is they're just smarter than us. And we're like, hey, let's go for it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm in the rough. I'm 228 out. Yeah, let's grab the wood and let's go for it.
100%.
In the water, right?
Well, you also made an interesting point because you referenced the State Am, and I get a pretty cool opportunity where they let the media come play the course a week before the tournament.
Oh, cool.
So
awesome.
So we went up and played the country club, and my guy Easton Folster, who's the director of the UGA, he does this on purpose. He always puts me with the best player in the field. And so this year he put me with Steele DeWalt, who actually qualified and played on the PGA Tour. He's a Park City kid. So whenever you think you're good, you see guys like that, and it's just like, I'm never going to be able to do the things they do. I mean, I'm in awe of what pros or guys that have played at that level can do. It's funny. I asked him, he went through Q school with like all the big dogs. And I asked him, I said, who's the one guy that all of you were in awe of? And I thought he was going to say Scotty. He said Xander. He said it was Xander. Like Xander was like the prodigy, like coming up with all those. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one at all. But yeah, I haven't golfed with like very amazing golfers like that, but a couple times, and you're like, yeah, it's just a whole different game, right? It's just a whole different game to them.
Did you ever, and for our listeners, Spencer was a great college player and played pro basketball for a while and was actually working out with the Jazz Summer League team. So there's kind of a parallel here. Like, I thought I was a good basketball player until I went to 5-star basketball camp and played against God Shamgod, now Shamgod Wells. And he was an NBA guy, built different, Providence, PC Friars. He was bigger than me. Yeah. He was stronger than me. He was faster than me. And I went home and I'm like depressed because I knew I was never going to be an NBA player. Who was the first guy you ran up against where you're like, oh, okay, that's what this looks like?
Do you want to know what? Honestly, the first thing that pops into my mind, I don't know if this was the first time, but the first thing that pops into my mind is getting sealed in the low post by Carlos Boozer.
Oh, okay.
like transition in fall camp. Oh, actually, do you want to know what? Something that did pop into my mind just now. I remember coming in to play in the workout, pre-draft workout for Danny Granger, and I remember just he was probably an inch or two taller than me, maybe 6'8", 6'9", but long as all get out, and exactly what you said. That was at the peak of Spencer Nelson's physical everything, and he was stronger and quicker, faster, everything about it, and I could not score on the dude, right? I did pretty well defensively against him, and I'm sure he scored on me and did some things, but in terms of getting the ball in a one-on-one situation, I couldn't do anything against him. I was like, oh, okay, that's a lottery pick, right? That's the difference between a borderline NBA guy and a lottery pick. And Danny Granger obviously ended up being good, not having a phenomenal career, but those are the two experiences. When Boozer, I'll tell you what, Boozer's wrists were the size of my thigh, is what it felt like. And that dude sealed me, and I was like dead. I had nothing. I couldn't do anything. So those are the two moments of that. But speaking of God, Shamgod, one of the coolest things, I went and played Summer League in Milwaukee a couple years into my career. And we show up, last-minute additions, me and this other dude, and we don't even have names on our jerseys. Everyone else has names on their jerseys, and they're going to send a couple dudes home after a couple days of practice, even before Summer League starts. And guess who the two dudes are with no names on their jerseys? Spencer Nelson and God Shamgod.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I loved God Shamgod in college. Loved him,
yes,
right?
Yep.
Just thought he was so good. So I was a little bit in awe, but we were the two dudes without names on our jerseys, and 2 days into it, names on our jerseys show up, and they're like, yeah, we thought we were going to cut you guys, but you're going to play.
Love it.
It was fun.
Yeah,
cool.
the drill that depressed me and changed my life is it was a one-on-one ball handling point guard drill to break a man-to-man press, and all you had to do was beat the guy guarding you. And he picked my pocket 3 straight times. And it was the first time I'd experienced that. And it's not just that they're good, as you alluded to with Boozer. They're built different. Their arms are longer. Their hands are bigger. Their hands are padded. You know, it's not just the skill. It's literally being built like a different human being. It was unbelievably eye-opening for me.
Yeah. Hey, anytime you got a move named after you,
yep.
you're the Shamgod, he was awesome. So I can relate to that. He was a good dude.
Yeah, for sure. Legend, East Coast legend. All right, so I think Coach Calhoun has a little bit of a beef here, Spencer. Look, Ken Pomeroy, friend of the show, who we'll have on to help people fill out their brackets, and I use Ken's stuff. Everybody uses Ken's stuff. Ken's going to join us tomorrow. Yeah. He never brings this up to be rude. He just brings it up because it's real. Like, the committee pretty much tells us that they don't necessarily respect the Mountain West Conference all that much. And historically speaking, I mean, San Diego State went on an awesome run. I mean, historically speaking, the Mountain West Conference just doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. It's a one-bid league. Now, it's nice that it's San Diego, and I actually think they beat Villanova. We'll get into it in a moment. But what was your reaction when you saw the announcement that the Aggies were on the 9 line?
Yeah, two points. Scary to think if they lose that championship game.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's how lowly of the Mountain West Conference the committee thought of them this year, right? If they lose that championship game, are they in the play-in game against Miami of Ohio or SMU, right? Like, is it that bad? And so that's where I first went. Then I was like, to be honest with you, I had them as a 7 seed. I thought that's what they deserved, but I thought they were going to get an 8 seed. And it doesn't matter if you're an 8 or a 9. It's the same game. You just wear a dark jersey instead of a white jersey. And I really do, as I sat and just looked at the bracket, I love Randy Bennett at St. Mary's, and I'd rather be a 9 seed playing Villanova, who is a good team, than a 7 seed playing Texas A&M, because matchups really, really matter. And a Texas A&M SEC team is a worse matchup for us than a Big East Villanova matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. And it's rough that if you get by Nova, you'll see Arizona, who I think might be the best team in college basketball this year. But let's dig in here. So Kevin Willard is the head coach of Villanova. It's his first year there. He started his career with the Celtics, and then he worked for Rick Pitino. Then he coached Iona, speaking of Northeast legends, Seton Hall, Maryland. And then he did take this team to the most wins that a first-year head coach in Villanova has ever accomplished. That includes Jay Wright. I saw him the first game of the season because they played BYU. It's interesting. They just didn't really beat any good teams and didn't necessarily lose to teams that they shouldn't have outside of Georgetown in the tournament. Georgetown's not good this year. But I know it's early. You probably need to watch some tape. They've got 5 players that average 9 points or more. They're not one superstar heavy. But tell me what you think about this matchup. Utah State is actually favored to win.
Yeah, Willard's done a great job, and I actually have watched a little more Villanova than I probably should have. They've been on TV a few times. They don't have a lot of good quad 1 wins. I think they've got 2 quad 1 wins, and maybe 2 and 6 or something like that. I can't remember the exact. Very guard-oriented spacing, right? And you talk about the balance of scoring. They've got a number of guards that can score, good players. I don't think they have anyone great, right? Like, they don't have a dude. And they got one big dude, but I think rebounding can be a problem. And it's a very just stable, secure, organized way that they play basketball. On the defensive end, they don't take a lot of risks. They're actually really different than Utah State. They're not aggressive. They're in the gaps, and they're protecting everything from about 20 feet and in. And then offensively, spacing, ball movement, very perimeter oriented. So they're gonna have to shoot it well. And traditionally, teams don't shoot it well in the NCAA tournament. Now, it is a college arena. It's not one of the big NBA arenas, and I think that has something to do with it. But just little things like new basketballs that are fully pumped up and stuff like that. So I think it's a really good matchup because they don't have a lot of length. They don't have a lot of athleticism. And so you look at the Mountain West, who Utah State struggled with, UNLV, Grand Canyon. It was those types of teams. That's not what Villanova is. And so I think it's a good matchup for the Aggies, and I think the odds makers have it. Now, they're favored, but not by much, and it's really, really close. So it should be a really, really good game.
I referenced Arizona, so, let me actually preface it with saying this, as I have to every year. None of us know a thing about how this is going to play out. If you're new to the bracket thing, it is impossible. My mother won it a year ago. She knows nothing about college basketball. Our office administrator the year Tony Bennett took his team to the national championship, thought he was handsome, picked them, won the thing. So it's impossible to predict. I think I'm gonna go with Arizona though to win it all, and that's Utah State's second opponent. I think it was MJ Collins who was very confident, and I love it with the bravado that after they beat Villanova, they're going to beat Arizona, then reset the thing, and they'll be the number 1 overall seed. Are you willing to expand your mind to believe that Utah State can hang with and maybe dispatch of a number 1 seed in Arizona?
I remember playing against Arizona in the NCAA tournament. That was back Channing Frye, Hassan Adams, David Stoudemire, Radenovich. Very, very good team. I think they were a 3 seed, and that's when they played Melo, when they went all the way and lost to Melo. I love the Aggies. I love this team, all of that. I think this team can beat Arizona 1 out of 50 times, right? Yeah. Like there is not a high probability, but can it happen? Yeah. Can Drake Allen, can MJ Collins, can Mason Falstove, can they all show up? I think they're really going to struggle with the size of Arizona if they beat Villanova. I mean, Arizona's just so big. So could it happen? Yes, but I wouldn't put more than $50 on it.
Were you on that 2000-2001 team? Was that the team you were on?
No, I was still on my mission that year, and so that was the year that I think that was the year they beat Ohio State.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And then I came back. The next time we made the tournament was my junior year, and we lost to KU team. That was back in the Big West days when we got really bad seeds. We were a 15 seed playing a 2 seed, and we lost to KU by 3 at the buzzer. And that was the Nick Collison, Keith Langford. Why can't I think of the point guard?
What year was that?
Kirk Heinrich.
Oh, Kirk Heinrich, yeah.
Yeah, that was 2003, and then the next year we ended up going again, and that's when we played Arizona and lost to Arizona. I think we were a 14 seed and they were a 3 seed. But yeah, I mean, obviously the respect for Utah State, and they deserve it. Now, I mean, we've had 7 seeds, 8 seeds, 9 seeds. You talk about the Mountain West not getting much respect. Some years they have, right? I mean, the year that they got 4 teams in. But you also look at those years as, I mean, they had some NBA guys in the conference, right? I mean, even last year they had Nate Clifford in the conference. There's some great players in the Mountain West, but there's no just clear-cut NBA dudes. And so I think really competitive, really good conference, but not to that level that I think it's been in some years past.
I'm wondering, because the 1960 team was ranked 7th in the nation, so maybe that's the best Aggie team in history. Is there a chance that this team could play their way into that conversation?
They're that good,
yeah.
Honestly. They are so good, and with the way they're playing right now, I mean, MJ Collins and Mason, really, really good. I think one of the secrets to all of it is Drake Allen, who – I don't know how familiar you are with him. Just an incredible story. A Westlake guy who didn't have any offers, walked on at Snow College just by going to play pickup ball and them saying, hey, do you want to come play? Do you want? And so walked on at Snow College, earned a scholarship, went to SUU, went to UVU. He's always, to me, been kind of the X factor when he shows up and plays at an elite level like he did these last 3 games in the conference tournament. It just changes the entire game for them. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard to be in that conversation if you lose this first round game. But if you win the first round game, you're in elite competition because we just haven't had many of them, right? Danny had one, Stu had one team win in the first round, and then you got to go back to like the 70s and 60s and that kind of stuff to get there. So definitely, if this team wins in the first round of the NCAA tournament, they've got to be a part of the conversation to say, hey, is this one of the best teams in Aggie history?
I want to get a BYU thought from you, but before we do, can we give a little love? You referenced his name earlier, to the second greatest shooter in Bountiful High history, Sam Merrill. I mean, This kid, Spencer, he's playing his way into potentially like $100 million deal.
Yeah, do you want to know what? This is the craziest thing. He signed that 4-year, $38 million deal. I don't want to jinx anything. I'm superstitious about stuff like that. Like he's underpaid right now.
Yes, he is.
I mean, he's like his numbers. Last time I looked, he was 13 a game. He's shooting 45.5% from 3. I mean, he's playing like a 14 or 15 million a year guy right now. Like unbelievable. And here's the thing that's amazing. Not just sharpshooter. James Harden's been really good because he's spaced the floor, and James has actually passed the ball really, really well. But defensively, Sam Merrill is now elite. And most people are going to be like, no, he's not. Yeah, he is. If you look at the analytics, he was. Now they made the trade for the guy from Sacramento who's actually a really good perimeter defender as well. But he is the most trusted perimeter defender on that team by Kenny. And so, like I went out there the other day, well, a few months ago, they're playing Memphis. Who starts on Ja Morant? Sam.
Yep.
Right? Like look at when he's starting the game, and he's shifted in and out of the starting lineup, but look at who he is guarding, and you're like, oh my goodness, they have Sam on that dude. The level of trust they have on the defensive side with Sammy is amazing. And then, yeah, it's been fun this year. Last year, I would say strictly shooting. This year, he's actually been playing a little bit more out of the pick and roll and getting into the lane. He's a very, very good passer, and he's been able to score more points in the paint this year than he did last year. But yeah, Bountiful High product. You said second best shooter in Bountiful High history, right?
Yeah. I mean, that
makes sense.
You know, that's not for me to decide. That's just what historians say. So that's all.
it's math. Okay,
It is.
You can't argue with math.
Yeah,
It's
no,
math.
no, well said. Did Sam ever hit 5 threes in the first quarter against Layton? I don't think so. That's all I'm saying.
Once again, it's just math. You can't argue with math.
I'm so impressed because he's the sweetest kid, as you know. I'm so happy for him. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
It's awesome.
before I say you lose, like Utah State, if BYU gets out of the first round, and I think they will, either NC State or Texas, neither of those teams guard very well. They see Gonzaga in the second round. So that's tough. Before I say you lose, best case scenario for for BYU in the tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually, it all depends. I haven't seen, and you may be able to help me, I haven't seen if the big kid's playing for Gonzaga. If he's not coming back, and I can't even think of his name right now, so I apologize. I should have his name. But if the big kid's not playing, who hasn't been playing, he's been injured. If he's not playing, I think BYU can beat Gonzaga, right? That same Gonzaga team lost to St. Mary's pre-tournament. I mean, if the big kid's playing, it's not happening, right? But if he's not playing, then I think there's a decent chance that BYU actually makes it into the Sweet 16. I don't have them going further than that, but because at that point they'll probably run into Purdue, and there's no way they're beating Purdue. But I could see them making it into the Sweet 16 if. Man, why this?
It's Braden Huff. He's questionable for the tournament.
Yeah, it's Huff. If Huff's playing, they're not going to beat Gonzaga. But if Huff's not playing, I think BYU. I'd actually say BYU's favored to win that game. Is my opinion.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate the time. I just realized I only know 25 letters of the alphabet.
Why?
Yeah, I don't.
Spence, why do you only know 25 letters of the alphabet?
I don't know why. Porter hates it. Porter hates it so much.
Porter, what is wrong? What happened to you?
He's shaking his head.
As a small child.
He's rolling his eyes.
I love that. I mean, the fact that we've got an 8-foot Spiders basketball team and that we don't know the letter Y, this is what life is all about, Porter.
He hates it.
Smell the roses.
Go ahead.
Spence, you're the man. Thank you so much. Great to talk with you.
Thanks for the time, buddy. Well, why don't you just like to have fun things?
I loved it.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right.
I thought he was talking about Richmond for a while.
Yeah,
so
did I.
What?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure where he was going. All right, great stuff from Spencer Nelson today. The madness of March is here. Catch a break. Bring in Craig Bowlerjack coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. Night off for the Utah Jazz tonight. They'll be back in action next on Wednesday against Minnesota. We'll get back to some March Madness stuff during the 5 o'clock hour. Let you know where you can go to fill out your brackets. Jazz played a game with the Kings last night, and when I heard Craig Bolerjack says Daquan Plowden drives past Mez Bang, I said, what am I doing here? The voice of the Jazz, Craig Bolerjack, joins us now. Hey, man, how are you?
You know what? I was thinking the same thing.
Like, what's going on?
I would not have expected the lineup we saw last night, but it is what it is. We're heading down the home stretch. 14 games to play, Spence, and I guess the key word here is evaluation, and that's going to continue for the next about 3 weeks. It looks, April 12th in L.A. against LeBron if he plays, doubtful, and the Lakers.
You've already circled the game, Craig. I love it. I got to say, it's interesting, and this is your job. You work for the team. You're part of the deal, and all that stuff. So, I'm not trying to diminish what we all know is going on. I'm not trying to,
Sure.
We all get it. Everybody's in on it. There's no secret. But I got to say, I went to the Warriors game when the Warriors were here. And I tried to get over there as early as I could because I hadn't been there in a while. So I leave here and I head to the arena. And I was early enough where I was able to catch up with a lot of people that I haven't talked to in a long time. I'm talking basketball people. I'm talking front office people, ticketing, broadcasting. And everyone to a person is just looking ahead to next year. Like this stuff like this, Craig, is not easy on anybody,
No, it's not, Spence. I think it's, written about, talked about. Look, next year with Jaren Jackson Jr., and the deal that Austin, Danny, and Justin Zanuck made is titanic. Not sinking. It's amazing just what they could build here with a front line of Kessler if he returns, and Lowry and Triple J, and the development of Keontae and Ace Bailey. That five is pretty ominous in the sense of what defenses will have to build to surround them. But yes, to protect the 8th pick, this is what is facing the Jazz. And, I like to win. You like to win. Fans, I think, do totally understand the situation at hand. And, I said before, and I truly mean it, that there are a half a dozen guys that are trying to make this roster for next year, to be a part of the future, to be about the positive road the Jazz are taking and what they hope to be as a long run in the Western Conference. And that's really what this is about. Harkless, Collier, Sensabaugh, Cody, Filipowski did not play last night. But even a John Conchar, who came over in that trade, he hasn't played the last 4 games. So I'd like to see him back on the floor for them to take a look at. Blake Henson is an intriguing NBA body who has a 3-point shot. So there's a lot of just let's watch and see who they are and what they become. But I will tell you this, Spence, any guy that's on the floor playing for the Jazz right now, they're busting their tail because this is audition time. And I've got to be honest, I've been pretty impressed with the way they've been able to hang. And again, they've had a couple of 18-point leads that just kind of drifted away. Last night, up and down, trailed by 12, led by 6, and lost a game by 5. So, I mean, at least competitively, they're out there, trying to ball and prove they belong in this league. And really, honestly, that's all they can do. And then the evaluation process belongs in the front office.
The Warriors game was hilarious. Like, I hadn't been down there in a while. And so I'm watching. I'm like, all right, how's Will going to try to pull this off? Because Golden State, they were without Steph, they were without Moses. I mean, they showed up without Jimmy Butler. They were without probably 4 of their top 7 pieces. But Draymond played, and Golden State's trying to win. They want to get into the tournament, and they want to maximize Steph. So I'm watching, and Keontae was available. He sits in the 4th. Sensabaugh's available. He sits in the 4th. And to close the game, Will trots out Elijah Harkless, Oscar Tshiebwe, Blake Hinson, Cody Williams, and John Conchar. I'm like, okay, well, if that doesn't get it done, nothing will. And when Hinson hit that, game-winning 3, I look over at Will, and the look on his face is like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, he's, he's doing everything he can. But to your point, these guys, most of whom, if we're honest, aren't part of the long-term plan, have to put tape out there so another GM or coach says, well, wait a second, maybe there's something to like about that Elijah Harkless kid. Let's bring him to camp next year. It's impossible to tell these players to go out there and try to lose. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the competition, the competitiveness that is born within these individuals who've made it to this level. And you don't get to this level unless you have, taken your art, your craft very seriously, and that's what they're trying to do. Jerry Sloan, you heard it 1,000 times. I heard it 1,000 times. He made it very clear to every player that he ever coached was, look, lunch pail, bust your tail, because 29 other teams are out there looking for talent. And if you don't make it here, it doesn't mean you don't make it someplace else. And to your point, having video, having tape, having you playing against Golden State with some of their players. Well, Draymond was on the floor, right? So, I mean, you have to kind of piece it all together. But, it's with expansion possibly going to happen in Vegas and Seattle, Spence, players are going to be looked at a little more in depth. You may be able to make a 9, 10 or a 10, 11, 12 spot on a team. Who knows? So the Jazz are giving some of these young guys, Bez Mbang and Blake Hinson, a chance to sign, and even an Anderson Garcia. These are names I've had to learn. Let's be honest. These names do not, don't roll off a lot of broadcasters' tongues every night. And so these are all new guys who are out there. I like them, by the way. They're incredible individuals who understand what they're doing and really what the process is right now. And they're just trying to take advantage of the minutes they get on the floor.
It's all you can do. And all we can do as people who cover the team is look for developmental moments that might mean something. And I have felt bad at times for Cody Williams, who over the first couple of years has just looked like he was over his skis, and then there was some health stuff, and it's like, so look, again, it's tough to really analyze much because we know what time it is in this league when it comes to teams that aren't very good, that players put up big numbers. I always ask the question, can you do that when the team is serious? But for a few moments, I mean, look, 34 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, 12 of 20. 3 of 7 from 3, 7 of 8 from the line. Like, he is looking in a losing effort like he is finding some things down the stretch. That's not nothing. You drafted the kid as a top 10 pick.
Right. No, you make a great point, and I think the coaching staff looks at it the same way. Here's an opportunity. What are you going to do with it? And Spence, I think, obviously Keontae was the talk of the town at the beginning of the season with the way he started and the way he's handled himself both on and off the floor and just the maturation process. And Cody would be my next guy in line here. Granted, with Markkanen and, off and on injuries and Nurk out, they played him in multiple positions, like Filipowski would go in that same category as development. And Cody has probably, the minutes given him, he has grown the most of that group besides Keontae this year. And, you had to wonder, what was this number 10 pick really going to turn out to be? I kind of felt like, playing in the shadow of his brother. That's my opinion, no one else's. But Jalen wins an NBA championship. He's an all-star. And all of a sudden, little brother comes in as the 10th pick, and the expectations, what, Spence? Let's be honest, they're high. And sometimes you either embrace it or you are overwhelmed by it. And I think it's taken him time to understand his role, who he is. I do like his drive to the rim. I do like his confidence that he's showing everybody. He's a much stronger, confident, taking the bump to the rack kind of guy now, which I didn't know if he had the physical tools to do that. And the Jazz have given him the minutes and the opportunity, and all of a sudden I think he feels like he belongs. And Big T always says there's a moment in everyone's career, I don't care what you do, basically, but in the world of athletics, it's like I belong. And I think Cody finally the bell rang, right? And that's what we're seeing. But you make a great point. How does that translate when the Jazz actually put the full complement and other teams put the full complement on the floor against the Jazz, and he's asked to come in and play 12, 14 minutes a night? That'll be the real telltale sign of how far along he's come. But again, in year 3 next year, If he's part of the future, we'll get a chance to evaluate that. But I like the fact that he's moving ahead, and it seems like to me his confidence level is nowhere near what it was back in November.
So with Keontae basically shut down, I mean, I don't know that he's going to play because you referenced 14 games left. And the reality is you got to see this thing through to the end. And because of some random wins, like the Warriors win, and they ran up against their tanking match in Washington, they're in this perilous area where they're going to hold on to the pick. I mean, we're going to have to wait until lottery night. But as of right now, they're 5, and there are a lot of teams that have now joined into we are no longer serious either. So they're going to have to. They're going to. They're going to hold on to it. The only way that they're guaranteed to hold on to it is if they're in the bottom 4, and we'll see if they can get there. Actually, losing to Sacramento helps, as weird as that is. So I don't know that we're going to see much of Keontae the rest of the way, but I do think we'll probably continue to see some more of Sensabaugh. And I just look at this through the prism of, okay, everyone knows the deal. We're looking ahead to the future. Who's going to be here when they're good again? And I think Cody is still a question mark. I actually think, Filipowski might be a guy they're looking at. But Sensabaugh has also grown in a way where he's no longer just a guy that can get buckets. Now, if you can just do that, an NBA team's going to find a home for you because you have to have it. But what other pieces have you seen him add outside of the ability to score?
I've seen him be a better rebounder. I've seen him be a better playmaker for his teammates. I think he reads defenses better, Spence, than he has in his first 2+ years. He's come a long way since just before and after the All-Star break. The other part of it is he is a scorer, and he can shoot the 3, and he's not stuck in that realm every night where he just has to stand out and knock down a 3, corner, straightaway, wing. I like the fact he knows he's 6'6", 225, and use the body to roll inside and take the first hit. He's got a nice off-balance shot. He's got the teardrop. He can drive and finish. And I think defensively is what Will said to me 100 times and to the media is that, again, I want these players to develop into defensive-minded stoppers as well. Look, they're in the league for a reason. Yeah, they've been able to score at their collegiate level, but how about in the NBA? To be a champion, you have to play both ends. And, you look at the last 2 champions, Boston and Oklahoma City, that's exactly how they play. And they've got offensive, firepower, but they come back and punish you defensively. And lately you kind of have seen the Jazz, effort levels go up some, not with the regular starting 5 that you think we'll see next year, but with these guys, these players and Garcia and, and even I think Sensabaugh has upped his game, and so is Isaiah Collier, and Harkless is tenacious defender. So you kind of see that this group has bought in to know if I'm going to play for the Jazz or stay in this league, guess what? I'm going to have to make my mark as a defender. And I think Bryce Sensabaugh understands that as well as anyone, too.
One more Jazz question, then we'll move off of it. I try to exist in the realm of what's most likely and just be in reality instead of things that probably aren't going to happen. And the reality was the Jazz fell in the lottery last year. So Dallas moves up, San Antonio moves up. So hopefully the Jazz finally get some lottery luck that we've never had before, but it is a lottery. It is not a conspiracy, even though folks around here love to make that a thing because it fits their narrative of living in a small market. It just sometimes crazy things happen. San Antonio's been very lucky. I can promise you there's not some conspiracy theory in New York to turn San Antonio, Texas, or Oklahoma City, Oklahoma into, hubs of great basketball. But unfortunately, we haven't had the luck. So right now, Craig, the most likely drafting spots for the Jazz are 5 and 6. Could that change? Mm-hmm. Sure. Could absolutely change. Now, when you look at the list of prospects or mock drafts, the best players in that range, they're point guards. There are 3 or 4 really good point guards in that range. So if they drafted 5 or 6, where they're most likely to draft, as of today, it could change, and they take a point guard, what do you think that means for Isaiah Collier and Keontae George? My thought is you take a good young point guard, you put him next to Keontae, because I actually think Isaiah Collier has a 10-year career in him as a backup for a good team. So you tell me what you think that looks like if they take a point guard in the draft.
Well, I've talked to management about it, and they, you say, do you go position or do you take the best player available? And the collective, thought is you go best player. And so some teams do try to draft for a particular spot they're in desperate need of. And I think if the best player is a point guard, then so be it. That's the way that Austin Ainge, Justin, and Danny are going. And so they're going to have to deal, with that issue. And probably it's a good one to have. Collier plays his tail off. He's another guy you have to talk about, Spence, because, I think he's tamed himself down a little bit, even though his speed is outrageous and his strength is evident on the court. His ability to stop and go and turn, put his shoulder down and score. He's really elevated his game. He's made the Jazz stand up and notice, and so is Keontae. So that is a difficult situation to be in. Do you move forward with those two? Do you let a young guy grow like Keontae has and then make decisions down the road? That's above my pay grade. But I still think from what I get and gather is that the best player available the Jazz will take. And however that works out, that's going to have to be worked out behind closed doors at another time. But they are excited, and I think the fan base, you felt it right in the building. The Jazz continue to fill the Delta Center, and man, it's amazing to me. Last night, Sacramento had a good, really strong crowd in there to watch the 14th and 15th place teams in the West because they're selling the future as well. And I think Kings fans, like Jazz fans, they remember the past at Arco, the Cowbells, right? The days of Doug Christie, who's now the head coach. They all remember what it was like, and they hope they return, as does Jazz fans. Jazz Nation remembers the days of Stockton and Malone, and, man, they're hungry for it to return. New names, but the same results. Hopefully, though, beyond just making it to the finals, but to actually to hold a trophy.
Yes, sir. That's certainly the goal. Away from the Jazz for a moment. Now, OKC is almost healthy. They're rolling again, and they've established themselves as the clear favorite. No matter where you look, it's Oklahoma City. But
right.
What are you willing to? It's always interesting in the NBA. I'm very hesitant to say I think this team can win a championship if we haven't seen them experience the playoffs at least once as a group. San Antonio might be that exception. I mean, when Wembanyama is healthy, Craig, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. And it's not just him. They've got all these big guards that can play defense, shoot the ball from the outside, and make plays for others. What are you willing to say that you think San Antonio is capable of this year?
Oh, they're capable. You're right. Wembanyama by himself has taken, I think, another step in the second half. And I'm talking even before the All-Star break. And, he's had to work his way back. And he's an elite. I mean, he's elite of elite. And he can obviously wreck anybody's defenses on any given night because he can do so much. But I would think, even though OKC has the experience and the savvy, and maybe they survive in a 7-game series with San Antonio as they learn how to win. It's almost like Boston coming back now, Spence, with Tatum. And, Detroit is so good, but youthfully good with Cade Cunningham. And are they quite ready? Can they beat the wily old vets of the Boston Celtics? And that, to me, is the most intriguing part of the postseason for me, is to see if SGA and the Thunder, even though they're still very young, if they can hold off a Wembanyama-led San Antonio team because they've been there. Coaches I talk to and players that have come and gone, they say how important it is to understand the pressure and what it takes to constantly be at your highest levels in the postseason. Getting through the first round, sometimes you think it's simple. It's not. And I think that's why when you go back and look at the Jazz of 97 and 98, to go back-to-back and try to beat Jordan and the Bulls took a lot out of the Jazz, Stockton and Malone. But look how old they were as well. They had to wait their turn. And I still think this will be a fascinating playoffs. There's so many storylines and so many teams. Only a couple, but there's still some sleeper, teams out there that could come out there and cause some trouble in the West and the East. But, man, I tell you, hard to beat the champs. It's possible. And it's also Boston's been there, and I just wonder if Detroit's quite ready in the East. It'll be fun.
Last thing, Craig, before I set you loose, I always, this time of year, like to ask you about your memories of calling NCAA tournament games. For listeners that don't know, once upon a time, Craig did that quite often. So last thing, I'll set you loose. It's a great time of year, yeah?
I love it. I miss it. 13 years at CBS was a blessing. I remember so many great moments. Taco Bell Arena with James Worthy. I remember Hampton knocking off Iowa State, Bucknell knocking off Kansas. It's just a moment in time. Look, some people want to change the tournament. I say leave it. I don't know, Spence, how you feel, because a lot of changes. What else can we do to make it better? Do we want to get everybody in there and involved for television or revenue's sake? Look, I mean, the NCAA tournament has a real special feel to it. And you know what? My old football partner, Joel Klatt's not a fan of it, and I would totally disagree with him. He didn't experience it. I did, to call 4 games in one day. But it's the beauty of the magic of the moment. And I think, Big T can speak to that. In '83, when North Carolina State took down the Nets and Jimmy Valvano was running around the court looking for hugs and kisses and whatever it was, and he was a man lost in his own world for a moment. But how iconic is that? I felt that same thing. Taco Bell Arena with James Worthy, the former Laker great. All 4 of our games that first day ended with a jumper at the buzzer to win. That's the magical part, because every team we talked to on the Tuesdays and Wednesdays prior to the Thursdays and Friday first rounds, every one of those young guys, I don't care what conference you're from, but they all believed for a moment they could be the Cinderella. And I hate to see that purity of the game kind of be left on the, on the doorstep or on the curb, because that's real. There's not much left that's real in college hoop or college athletics or professional sports, and that is real. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Bowler, you're the man.
There I am on my soapbox, pal.
No, all good. All good. I miss you on those calls. You've called some epic, classic college basketball games. But I appreciate your time today. 14 more, pal. You got this, okay?
All right. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Come by.
I will. I'll make it down there before the end of the year.
Sounds good.
The great Craig Bowlerjack, TV voice of the Utah Jazz. I love that he has the date and games circled when this season is over. The Madness of March is here. You guys can win $1 million. How about that? One bracket, $1 million. The ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM $1 million bracket challenge is live. Sign up today on ESPN700sports.com. It's brought to you in part by Big Willie's, Game Day Men's Health, Intermountain Bobcat, Budweiser, the Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Burger Fusion, and the Utah RV Super Show. Also, speaking of basketball, any drive to the basket begins with the first step on the court. That's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and Lawn Food is the first choice to give your yard healthy, thick, green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it here on a Monday afternoon on ESPN 700. All right, Drive at 5 time. Your commute home on a Monday afternoon starts right now. I said Friday, it's Monday. We're not even close. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a great weekend, fun weekend. A lot of fun sports action, a lot of fun basketball action, both pro and college. Of course, Election Sunday was yesterday, and the Utah Jazz played the Kings last night. 18 players combined from two teams were held out. The Kings won, so go Jazz. Jazz are off until Wednesday. They're going to take on Minnesota. But, of course, NCAA tournament time. You can check out ESPN700sports.com for your chance to win $1 million. Fill out the bracket. BYU found out their fate. They are a 6th seed out of the West region in Portland. They're going to take on the winner of NC State and Texas. Utah State, after winning the Mountain West Conference regular season and the tournament championship, was given a 9 seed, something Jared Calhoun did not appreciate. They're going to take on Villanova Thursday in San Diego. So it's a good matchup for Utah State. They're a slight favorite, getting a couple of points on most books. And Villanova is a team that I think Utah State can handle. We've been talking about it all day. Now, if Utah State wins that game, of course, they are going to advance to take on who I think I'm going to pick them to win the national championship. It's Arizona. So it's going to be a tough task, of course, for Utah State to go any further than the second round. And Brigham Young is going to take on Gonzaga if they're able to beat either NC State or Texas. Now, NC State, at once upon a time, earlier this year, was actually playing some really good basketball. They beat Carolina. They took Kansas to basically down to the wire. They lost a 1-point game to Kansas. They have a win over Clemson. They beat SMU. They beat VCU. But good news for BYU is both Texas and NC State right now have stumbled into the NCAA tournament. NC State, they were not a lock. And the committee chair joined the CBS crew yesterday and said that Texas was the last team in to qualify for the NCAA tournament. They were the last team to qualify for the NCAA tournament. Now, the Big 12 got 8 teams in. The SEC led the way again with 10. The Big 10 got 9. The Big 12, 8 teams in the tournament. NC State and Texas, they don't play great defense, but NC State stumbled down the stretch. They went 2-7 in their final 9 games. They lost to Virginia in the ACC tournament. Now, Virginia's a really good team. But, again, either of these teams, whether it's Texas or whether it's NC State, I think a game BYU can handle. And then after that, Gonzaga is in an interesting spot because Braden Huff, they're big. He's missed the last, I think, 13, 14 games. And Mark Few today, 15 games. He's missed 15 straight games. It was a knee injury the day before Gonzaga played Washington State. It was estimated that Braden Huff was going to miss 4 to 8 weeks. It's now been 8.5 weeks, and Mark Few today said he is jogging, but he's not going to be able to play this weekend, and we'll see. We have to get past Kennesaw. That was over the weekend. They did do that. He is currently questionable to play in their first-round game. So what does that mean for a potential matchup against BYU in the second round? Gonzaga plays Kennesaw State coming up on Friday at 8 p.m. So my guess would be Gonzaga should beat Kennesaw State without Braden Huff. They're probably going to sit him to anticipate a second-round matchup against BYU. And Braden Huff is really good. He's 6'10". He's the type of player that BYU struggles with because BYU does not guard the interior very well. 18.6 boards. He's very skilled. Very, very good player. West Coast Conference Player of the Year. Graham Ike right now is playing high level for Gonzaga. So I think both of our local teams that have been able to qualify for the tournament, I think they both get out of the first round. I do think Utah State will beat Villanova. Again, they're a favorite, and then they'll advance to take on Arizona in the second round. Villanova's an interesting team. It's a first-year coach, a guy that's been around for a long time. He led Villanova to 24-8 record, third in the Big East. St. John's, UConn, the two elite teams in the Big East Conference. Villanova played BYU the first game of the year. BYU beat them, but it was a good game, 71-66. When you look at their body of work, they just don't really have any top-shelf wins. 2-6 in quad one games. And more often than not, when they played a good team, they just lost. BYU, Michigan, St. John's twice, looks like UConn twice. their best win of the season, Wisconsin, probably at home, a 10-point win. So I know Utah State fans and Jared Calhoun upset about a 9 seed. You probably thought you earned a little bit more. And the unfortunate reality is Arizona in the second round feels like it's a really tough task. But you do get a short trip. And if you're an Aggie fan, you could do a lot worse than San Diego. So you might as well go play some golf and get your surf on and watch your team play. And hopefully they can at least win the first round. So BYU, of course, A.J. DeBonta, the leading scorer in the country. He just broke Kevin Durant's record last week at the Big 12 tournament for points scored. Zion Williamson's record for points scored in a tournament setting by a freshman for the first 2 games. He obviously is one of the biggest and brightest stars in college basketball and one of the best players in college basketball as well. And hopefully Alex Jensen, sooner rather than later, will have us all sitting on a Selection Sunday waiting to see where Utah basketball is going to be selected. No women's team in the NCAA tournament. BYU, last team out. Utah, third to last team out. It's the first time since 2018 that we have not had a women's team qualify for the NCAA tournament. All right, as you're driving around town wondering what you should do for dinner, I've got the answer for you. It's a new burger spot, and it is amazing. Not just one of the best burger spots in Utah, one of the best burger spots you're gonna find. It's called Burger Fusion. Okay, it's in Trolley Square. It's just west of the Whole Foods. It's right next to where the trolley used to be for the Trolley Wing Company. Unfortunately, that's not there anymore because that place was awesome. But this is really, really good. Velvet Smoke Show. Okay, tried this last week. Creamy peanut butter, berry jam, caramelized onions, hot honey pickles with pepper, jelly, aioli. I would recommend going in there to eat. You can order it like via DoorDash, but ordering burgers via DoorDash is dangerous because they don't usually show up warm. You can order and pick up if you like as well. Brand new spot, Burger Fusion in Salt Lake City. They've got great appetizers, and they've got great dip options as well. But the burgers, it's all Wagyu beef. Really, really good and really unique approaches as well. They got burgers, they got onion rings, they got fries. Check it out, Burger Fusion, our good friends over there at Trolley Square. All right, we'll talk more. New client alert on the program. It's my friends at Game Day Men's Health. You've heard me talk about them before. Go take advantage of this offer if you want to get back in shape, if you want to lose weight, or if you're in shape and you even want to up that, take advantage of it. They're giving you the same deal they give me. It is a free consultation, step number 1. A little bit of blood work, doesn't take long at all. Then they sit with you. They go over your levels. They show you what they have that can help you. For me, that was testosterone and peptides. Those are the 2 things I use from Game Day Men's Health. And within a couple of months of following their program, I got into the best shape of my adult life. And I'm still there 2 years later because I followed their program. If you need to lose a lot of weight, you've heard about the semaglutide, the tirzepatide, all the tides. They've got those too. This deal makes them affordable for you because it's not just a free consultation. You're getting 50% off, half off of your first-year membership. That's the deal they give me. It makes it really affordable. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com and make sure to tell them you heard me talking about it on the show. They're going to hook you up with 50% off our good friends at Game Day Men's Health. Also want to let you know I'm going to be out of the Utah RV Super Show coming up this week. It's March 19th through the 22nd. Mountain America Expo Center, largest RV selection in the state. Class A, B, and C motorhomes, travel trailers, they got it all. Dealers attending the show bring the best pricing, special offers of the season. If you've ever been interested in RVs, this is the deal. Adults, $10, kids 12 and under are free. Coupons are on the website. UtahRVSupershow.com. They're going to preview next year's RV models as well. Really cool thing. It's not just about vehicles. Celebrates outdoor lifestyle and family adventures. Put your phones down. Turn the TV off. Go explore new RVs March 19th through the 22nd at Mountain America Expo Center. Shout out to Mark Harlan, nominated for Athletic Director of the Year. Some good stuff there for our guy Mark Harlan.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the program. Didn't he win this like 2 years ago?
I don't know if it was this one, but some publication involved.
Is it one of those things like, I get an email every year, and it says, hey, fill out this application and pay us $35, and you can win Utah Broadcaster of the Year. And I'm like, nope, I'm never doing that.
We got nominated for the SLC thing again.
I know, Porter. We are the Susan Lucci of sports talk radio shows. We have been nominated for Best Radio Show in Salt Lake City. And we used to go to the dinner, but I got sick of seeing Radio from Hell just win our trophy every year.
Yeah.
It's nice that we're usually only the only sports show nominated. That's usually pretty cool.
This is true. So does that mean we win Best of SLC Sports Show?
Yeah, but
technically.
But that bar is like, come on, dude. We don't compare ourselves to such things. We have higher aspirations than just being the best sports talk radio show in Salt Lake.
Aspiration. You want to talk Clippers?
Is that the name of the fake company?
Yeah. Sorry.
I had to. Well, they're at least the Clippers are involved in a serious production tonight. They're playing the Spurs.
And the Clippers have looked good the last few months. I don't know how I feel about that team having a postseason run and potentially a playoff appearance with this stuff kind of hanging over the NBA's head, but we'll cross that bridge later.
This is your symphony number 41. You are obsessed with this story.
A little bit, but come on. I mean, how can you listen? I assume the NBA is going to have something to say about it, but to me, it almost seems like a big enough deal that you would do something before. Listen, the investigation plays its. You're going to go through the investigation, get all the returns, all that. But I don't know if you've been following it closely. Like there is very little question about what was going on. And Steve Ballmer, not the first time he has done the cap circumvention stuff. DeAndre Jordan, Kawhi before this. And now it's to the tune of $50 million approximately that was contributed to a defunct, bankrupt, fake company through carbon credits. I don't know, man. I just think that if they go on and the Clippers make a run and Kawhi looks awesome through the postseason, and then we find out that he was paid over the salary cap, officially, it's alleged as of now, I think it looks really bad in the league, especially when they're focusing on so many other things.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. Not great, Bob. Tell you that much.
to be clear, maybe I'm a little obsessed with the story, but it more so has to do with the backdrop of everything else in the league. The gambling stuff, the tanking stuff, the Adam Silver trying to create cute little tournaments in the middle of the season, talking about changing the draft. Like, the backdrop of it all is what kind of has me more focused on that.
Yeah, I listened to the first. Look, Pablo Torre, I think he's very smart and very good at what he does. The thing about this business is if you don't like somebody's voice or the way they laugh, you're not going to listen to anything they say. And I find him very, like Mina Kimes used to host the ESPN Daily podcast, and she was awesome at it. He took over for her, and I just stopped listening because I just find him annoying. I'm not saying he's not smart or good at what he does. It's like a band. You don't like the sound. I just don't like listening to his voice.
So have you not listened to the last one?
I only read what is reported. Like Baxter Holmes did a really big piece for ESPN. I've not heard the last one.
He did one at the big sports business conference that they do every year.
I did see the post.
And, man, like, if there's a smoking gun in this case, in this situation, he's uncovered it over and over again at this point and left Adam Silver all the evidence he needs. So we'll let the investigation, which is done by a independent law firm who also found no wrongdoing of the gambling stuff. The same law firm, by the way. We'll let that independent investigation run its course. But if we continue down this road and nothing comes of this, I'm just only going to continue to rail on it.
Why are you talking like you hit puberty over the weekend? What's going on with you?
I did kind of have a little... I didn't swallow a frog.
All right.
But a little rasp.
That is a little raspier than usual. Look, I'm not saying you're wrong about any of this. Yeah, the NBA is facing several things that aren't great. All right. Well, fun show today. Don't forget, Friday, 3:30, Morgan Scally will join the program. Porter, before we get out of here tonight, what comes our way on a Tuesday show?
Our guy Gordy Chiesa on a Tuesday, of course, taking over for Sean as he is out. Tim McMahon stops by for your NBA Daily Assist, and it's all college hoops. Ken Pomeroy, Casey Jacobson. We'll go from there on a Tuesday.
We will get you ready to fill out your brackets with Ken Pomeroy. If you're nervous about it, he is the guy to listen to. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you today to Kurt Schmidt and Richard Smith, Spencer Nelson, and Craig Bullerjack. For any sound you missed from the show, ESPN700sports.com is where you go. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. That app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Monday evening. We'll talk to you on a Tuesday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.